What's up, everyone? Welcome to America's Show. Host Rob Knorr, freshly trimmed, wearing my all gray outfit, gray hat, gray shirt, though I do have jeans on. Now my tongue looks okay. I was eating, my son insisted that I have one of those red, white, and blue popsicles, like the firecracker popsicles. Me and him cheers to each other. We each ate some popsicles. I'll be honest, I thought about eating it on stream. I don't know. I thought maybe that would be some of the risque content that people tune into. An old 40-year-old, gray-haired, boring guy like me just can't bring in the audience like some of these hip young people with their strange proclivities. How do you say your name there? Ayub Mara. First time not being a Vodfro. Welcome here. Look forward to your commentary, questions, comments. Money donation. I'm just messing with you guys. No, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. Thomas O'Brien says, how the hell are you? Great. I'm home. It's nice to be home, baby. Got to hang out with the family today. What do you guys think of the new haircut? Still bald, but bald doesn't look so bad as long as everything's proportional. The problem with my pattern baldness, and I think it's basically the same with everyone, is this area right here basically doesn't grow. So then this gets bigger, I get the old George Costanza going, and then the beard gets wild and scraggly. So, looks good here. I don't even need the hat today. We're still going to wear it because I like it. Jess Gerald, thanks so much for the $10, says, nice trim, bro. Thank you. A reminder to anyone who's watching on Twitch or other platforms, for whatever reason, it doesn't show up when you all donate anymore. So, if you put in the chat, I just donated money, I'll shout you out. And then if you lied to me, you win. I don't know what else to say. You did it. Should have just shaved my head like a boss. So here's the thing about being married. I don't get to make all of those sorts of decisions. Though we're talking about Andrew Wilson today. Andrew would probably say that I'm in a bad marriage or something. I don't know. My wife doesn't like it when I'm completely bald. I have been completely bald before. She doesn't care for it. So I'm not the one who has to look at me. That'd be her. So if she doesn't like it completely bald, we'll go with this. The old number 2, the whole way around. If you lie about donations, you get a cookie. Thank you. So before we get into the debate review we're going to do tonight, I didn't say gifted membership, but just Gerald, I know you're always incredibly generous. So as always, thank you for any gifted memberships. Andrew thinks I'm beta. That's all right. I'm in a happy marriage, so I don't mind. It's a give and take. I've been married 10 years. I've been with my wife for 14 years, but we've been married for 10. So our anniversary's in September, so this will be 11th. I was just talking to her. The house that I'm in right now, we've been in for 6 years. So it's weird looking at milestones. I feel very immature, so being 40 is weird to me. And I'm an old dad. My son's 4 years old, so I was 36 when my son was born, which is pretty old. Thank you so much, Jess Gerald. Incredibly generous. 50 memberships. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Always incredibly generous. So I got a story for y'all before we start today and get into the debate. We'll give people a chance to get in here to the stream. I got to meet a local celebrity today, one of my heroes. Now, what's weird is there is an off shot that this person could be watching because you never know. Anyone could be watching. And you might say, okay, dude, you have 100 people watching on various platforms. What are the chances out of billions of people in this world that this dude's one of the 100, your local hero here? Well, I do think that disproportionately, the people in my county probably are more likely to watch than maybe other people around the world because some of my viewers, my core viewers, might be people that knew me and then friends of theirs. So there's a chance this person could be watching. There is a strip club in the town that's the center of our county, Clarion. There's a strip club there. It used to be called the Sugar Shack. Now it's called Club Blue. Okay? Now, the Sugar Shack, I'm not going to speak to the morality of strip clubs or anything like that. I'll just say this. It's a very small town. And my guess is, not myself a big strip club connoisseur, right? But my guess is probably, well, let me put it in a way that maybe is a little more palpable, in case there's any people listening that they're PG, okay? They're not rated R. Let's say that I wanted to film a movie and I only wanted to employ people from my local county. Chances are that I wouldn't be getting the cream of the crop. Whereas if I went to a huge city and employed people from there, I have more people to pick from, probably more likely to get some better people. I believe strip clubs probably operate in a similar way. So, yes, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, Mexican Air Force. I don't know that it's the most top-notch talent, but to each their own. Through a series of conversations with a couple friends of mine and just random bullshittery, there's a Facebook page for the local strip club. And if you go to that Facebook page, there's like one guy that comments on every single post that this particular strip club puts up. Like, he's on a first name basis with all the strippers, right? And it's been a running joke for me and my friends for quite some time. Every like 3 or 4 months we'll be like, wonder what that dude's up to. Let's check the post. Let's oh, there he is. It's mostly GIFs and stuff like that, you know. But it is what it is. This guy also happens to work at a local fast food place. So I'm always thrilled if I happen to see him. I've never talked to him. He doesn't know that I think that he's hilarious. But anyways, as I was getting my hair cut today, I set my hoodie and my hat on a chair, and then I went and got my hair cut. And this guy, this hero of mine, this guy who's first name basis with all the local strippers, presumably spending all of his paycheck, or a huge portion of it, at the strip club, helping the local economy, truly salt of the earth hero. He sat, as I was going to get my hoodie and my hat, he sat right beside me. He was like, hey, what's up? And I was thrilled. I couldn't wait to tell my friends. I was like, what an amazing thing. It would be like, you know, if you're a big, you know, basketball fan, it would be like LeBron James walking up to you and be like, hey, what's up? Or how about Michael Jordan? Screw LeBron. That's what it was like to me. I was like, dang, I talked to him. I did it. They say never meet your heroes, but I was impressed. So that's my story from today. Quite exciting. Got to meet a local strip club connoisseur. Not too shabby for just going in and getting a quick buzz cut. So, yeah, good stuff. Also, it was kind of crazy, not to get into more details of my crazy trip. I think I have a very exciting, for being the most boring person ever, I have a very exciting life. Like, I always seem to stumble into human interest stories. So, like, I walk into this haircut place, you can hear a pin drop. And normally it's very talkative. So, like, there'll be 3 or 4 people in there cutting hair. They're mostly women. And, you know, people sitting in the chairs getting their hair cut, or people sitting in the chairs waiting to come in. And everyone's usually having a chat. This time it was really weird. And the one girl's on the phone. I had an appointment. So she's on the phone. Okay, she's not cutting hair. But then there's a guy that you can tell his hair is half cut. And he's sitting in the chair with no one cutting his hair. And then 2 other girls are at the chair right beside him with another guy. And only one's cutting hair, though. I'm like, So I sit down, and turns out what's going on is guy number 2, the one that they're cutting his hair, he's just the most passive-aggressive person ever. Oh, what's up with this right here? Can you brush my shirt off? This is an expensive shirt. Can you please brush it? I wanted a fade. What's this? So I'm sitting there, and the girl starts cutting my hair. It's like 2 minutes. She's barely talking. And I notice the price of his haircut's like $19 or something like that. When he's finished, she just goes up, like, here's a 20, and just storms out. And then the girls started talking in front of all the customers, which I don't know. But it was okay. I didn't mind. And they were like, yeah, this guy came in, and he's just like, I want a fade. And so the girl starts cutting his hair, and she's like, you know, what do you want done with, like, your sideburns here? What do you want done with your mustache? What do you want done with your beard? Like, how short do you want your haircut? And the dude just flipped out and was like, you're supposed to be professional. Why are you asking me all these questions? And apparently it's like a newer girl that's cutting this hair. And so she's like intimidated. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. And the guy was just like, this is ridiculous. And like starts yelling at her. in front of everyone. And so the more experienced lady that's cutting this gentleman's hair beside him is like, what's the issue here? And he's like, I want you to cut my hair. So she had to ask the guy whose hair she's in the middle of cutting, do you mind if I go over there and do this guy's haircut while you wait here? And that guy's like, cool. He's like, sure. And so she had to go over and finish this dude's hair while he was just super passive aggressive the whole time. I was like, oh, man. Little local drama. Getting involved. The guy did sound like a douche. So I stand with the haircut ladies. I stand by them. They did great with me. They're always very nice. We always talk about my son, Hank, and my work. Because a lot of times, it's one of the things working with adults with disabilities like I do. I think one of the steps that I've tried to make is, because we're in a small town, and my person loves engaging with people in the community, we've really tried to facilitate good relationships with like as many businesses as possible and the people that work there. So I'm like my guy's sidekick. When he goes around, he's like Norm from Cheers. Everyone's like, hey, you're here, buddy. What's happening? How have you been? And I'm just like the silent sidekick, you know? And so when I go to a business in town without my person that I work with, they're always like, hey man, what's up? Like, and they finally get to hear me kind of talk, because normally I try to be in the background as much as possible. So we talk about that. We talk about work and stuff a lot. So would I look different now from 3 years ago? I've lost a reasonable amount of weight. Maybe I don't know. I got some of my youthful vibrance back. I don't know. Anyways, there you go. That's my haircut story. Did we stall for enough time? We got enough people we could actually review the debate? Great. Here we go. All right, so the plan is we're going to make this more of an official show as time goes on. So I have a fantastic editor by the name of Black Elk. Black Elk, if you're listening, shout out. Fantastic dude. All of the thumbnails you see, like the comments are, the descriptions of my videos, all that stuff's Black Elk. He is tremendous. He does awesome work. And the goal is for Black Elk to hopefully get big enough where he can kick me to the curb and maybe go edit for like a bigger streamer and actually make a living out of it. Because right now it's just sort of a hobby for me. It's a hobby for Black Elk. But I'm incredibly appreciative of him. I think that he is just amazing. He came up with this idea. I guess it was mutual, but I'll have to give Black Elk the majority of the credit for this. We're coming up with ideas of directions to take my show after the election. Because obviously I got a bump during the election, doing debates and stuff like that. I'm still going to do debates, don't worry, when the opportunities arise. But there's a natural swelling of any political commentary show when you have an election. So more people are tuning in 3 months till the election, 2 months, 1 month, the day before, the day of the election, because it's on people's mind. So you're more likely to get more. And then there's a natural lull that occurs after that. And so that seems like a good place to be like, okay, what direction, what can we add to the show? What can we do to make it more exciting? And so what makes me unique that you might want to tune in to watch me? Obviously, handsome, good looks, we know. My amazing sounding voice that isn't the most annoying thing in the world. My awesome impressions, like here's the 2 impressions I have. I have Cookie Monster, Cookie. I could do Macho Man, oh yeah. And then I could do Brianna Wu, what's up everyone? They're basically all the same voice. But that's it. People tune in for that. But one of the things is, I was a nationally ranked collegiate debater. I was pretty good at policy debate. Policy debate isn't quite the same as you see, like this debate we'll be reviewing today, but I was pretty good. I was pretty good. And I was also a coach, and I was also a judge. So I wore all of those hats. And I think that allows me to look at debates a little different than maybe the average person that's looking at them, because I routinely, particularly debate community in college is the left of the left. I happen to be a right-winger. I routinely had to vote for arguments I didn't agree with. And I think that I'm usually pretty good at being able to dispassionately look at something and say, hey, I think that's a good argument, regardless if it's an argument that I agree with or not. Or, hey, I think that person had a good debate, or that person's a good debater. And so we thought it'd be interesting if I review some debates. Now, the downside to this is, when I've tried this before, basically, for any video I watch, my commentary usually ends up being somewhere between 2 and 3 times as long as that. So if I watch a 10-minute video, I'll probably talk about it for 30 minutes. And so if you watch a 2-hour debate, I'm here for 6 hours. which maybe could get a little, old. Andrew Haskins, thanks for level 3 membership. Says, you're the best debater I've seen on the internet. Thank you. I appreciate that. My wife would disagree. She thinks she beats me in debates all the time. But most of it's just strategic retreating on my part. She's fighting battles and I'm fighting the war. And trust me, I'm winning. So, unless she's listening right now, then you're the best. So, I find it best to do reviews of debates in the 30 to 40 minute range. So happens, the Piers Morgan, formerly of CNN Headline, is that what he was on? Teach debate. I could do that. I could do some debate teaching. What'd you like there, Ranger and Rogue? Should I click that? You can get me in trouble? Let's check it out real quick. Oh, you clipped my impressions. There you go. Nice. Piers Morgan was on like CNN Headline or whatever it used to be. He wears all sorts of hats. He's, I would say, a provocateur host. He has a show on Netflix that me and my wife watch sometimes. It's called, what is it called? Now I don't remember. But it's basically where he interviews like murderers. We used to watch. It's sort of interesting. But he's kind of a controversial figure. I don't like everything about him, but I think he's an entertainer. He's to the debate space what like Gordon Ramsay is to the going into the kitchen space. He's this like abrasive British person that knows how to bring controversy that makes for enjoyable viewing. Even if you don't agree with everything he's saying, or maybe you'd say he's kind of being hyperbolic intentionally to get clicks or to get views. So I think that he's an important person in this space because what he sought to do is bring debaters on from maybe more traditional people that you would see on mainstream media outlets to people you see on the debate sphere on online spaces like Destiny, Andrew Wilson, other people like that, Luke Beasley. And so the other thing that's great is most of his shows are less than an hour, so it makes reviewing them manageable for someone like me. And so the first one I'll be reviewing, since we've hit the new year here, first debate review, hopefully in this series, that there'll be debate reviews at least a couple times a month, is from the other day. We had Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, Cenk Uygur versus Andrew Wilson on a variety of topics centered around Trump's win and things that he's done in his first week in office. Now, full disclosure, I did talk to Andrew Wilson before this debate about some of the potential topics and some of my thoughts. And so that will influence. As much as I say that I'll try to be impartial, that's a lie. All of us have a bias. Sometimes that bias could unconsciously influence you. And so I just want everyone to know that I'm going to agree or tend to agree with the positions of Andrew Wilson more than the positions of Cenk Uygur in general. So don't think that like I'm trying to claim to be some tabula rasa, straight down the middle. When judging debates, you try to take your own bias out as much as possible. But I have to be honest, those biases can't influence you. So that's number one. The other thing is, I have not watched this debate, and most of the time when I review debates, I will like to have not watched them previously. I'll watch them with you so you can get my unfiltered thoughts. However, in this particular case, because some of the clips went viral on places like X and I saw them, I have seen several 2 to 3 minute chunks of this debate. So I'll know a couple of the arguments that are made. And but other than that, that's pretty much it. So we're going to jump in. I'll try to get to super chats and things like that. Other than that, I probably won't read many of the comments because I'll try to get on a roll and I don't want to get distracted. And then we can talk a little after the debate. So the first thing I would be remiss if I did not link, and regardless of what you think of the person, I just want to say thank you to Piers Morgan for putting on this debate. There is the link to this debate that I'll be viewing on his channel. If you like my review of it or the performance of either of the debaters, check them out and check out Piers Morgan's channel. And hopefully it's something you'd be interested in. He has a lot of debates on there. So if you like this type of content, maybe you'll enjoy his show. All right, let's dive in. Like I said, I have no idea. It's 40 minutes. I haven't watched the debate, so I don't know the order of it or anything like that. We're going to try our best. Let's jump in.
He did that so crisp, so sharp, exactly like the way that they did in the Third Reich. That's not an accident. He's a smart guy.
All the evidence points to the fact not only is he not a Nazi, but there's no good incentive for him to even do this. You just don't care. You don't care because you want it to be some trolling Nazi thing when it clearly isn't.
I think you're an idiot. I think you love that coup on January 6th. I think you hate our democracy. I think you hate our Constitution. So what part of that is cozying up to the right-wing bitch?
You have a female bishop. That's an impossibility. That is not Christian at all. That is satanic.
It's inversion, dude. It's satanic. You sound insane. You sound, to me, honestly, you sound like you belong in a mental asylum.
By the way, it's great to have the old Cenk back, by the way.
All right, let's talk about the opening. Forget about the arguments. We'll get to the arguments as they come up. But you like the little metal riff there? You like it? Dun, 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 dun. And then it's just the most hyperbolic comments that they're going to be making throughout this. Look, Cenk's been one in his past to be boisterous, to be confrontational when he's arguing with people. If you're looking for a good match for someone to debate him, Andrew Wilson style, also very abrasive. He's not going to hold back. And so it makes for, if nothing else, even if you don't like the arguments that either side's making, it's going to make for a clash. There ain't going to be a lot of kumbayas being sung. So coincidentally, I would love to debate either Andrew or Cenk on a place like Piers Morgan or Mehdi Hassan or many other lefties. Now, Andrew, we're going to agree with more than we disagree on in principle, but still, I would love the opportunity to debate on a place like Piers Morgan. I think it'd be cool. But yeah, I think that this is a good matchup of personalities if you're Piers Morgan or the producers of Piers Morgan, and you want a show that's going to be a lot of name-calling, a lot of personal insults. But I think with two people, to both of their credit, they're going to be able to take that in the chin. I don't think either Cenk or Andrew are the type of person that's going to leave a show like this after being called names and things like that, and they're going to cry themselves to sleep at night, or they're going to, talk about how unfairly they felt they were treated. So these are good personalities to clash against each other on something like this. But all right, let's move on to the debate proper.
President Trump pledged to transform the United States, and his first days in his office have been nothing short of shock and awe. Trump unveiled a tidal wave of executive actions, as well as scrapping all of Joe Biden's with a stroke of a pen. Supporters reckon Trump has crossed out more than just policy with his trademark Sharpie. They believe in a profound and perhaps permanent cultural pivot to a supreme United States in which bros rule, woke is dead, and Americans answer to nobody but God. And maybe...
Is that it? Bros rule, Americans answer to no one but God. Look, there are certainly people, again, if he's bolstering the arguments here of Andrew Wilson, Andrew being a Christian nationalist is going to be someone that's along those sort of lines. I don't think that's what every Trump supporter thinks, though. For example, me, you might say I'm in line with some of that, but I'm interested in outing a corrupt institutional bias that I see at places like the executive branches, agencies of middle management bureaucrats that really run the government. For example, we know that Joe Biden wasn't running the government for the past 4 years, but it was these unnamed bureaucrats that are doing things. By the way, it's a lot of these unnamed bureaucrats that are going to be the ones trying to sabotage Trump's presidency, just like they did in the first 4 years. But the framing there, it's like, oh, only God has a say in bros. That's what's going on. Okay, a little bit of poisoning the well there, Piers, but whatever.
Be Trump. But are they right? Well, joining me to debate, for the first time together, Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible, famed for what he calls blood sport debates with controversial thinkers from the worlds of politics, philosophy and religion. And in the opposite corner, Cenk Uygur is the founder and CEO of the Young Turks. By the
way, this is going to be bad form. I always called him Cenk Uygur. Is that wrong, though? Is it Uygur? Cenk? Apologies. I know you'll never watch this, but that's okay. Someday I'll smack you down in a debate. We've debated many people that have debated each other. So hopefully I'll get a chance to debate Cenk at some point. So I haven't intentionally mispronounced his name. I guess it's because I debated about the Uyghur Muslims so often in college debate that maybe that just subconsciously influenced me to say Cenk Uygur instead of Cenk Uygur. Ah, well.
OG of digital debates, has found his progressive populism at odds with many conservative commentators, as well as his own side. Well, Cenk has recently made it his mission to engage with conservative and pro-Trump firebrands like Andrew Wilson. The question is, can he keep his temper? We're about to find out. Because Cenk,
Ha! That's funny. It's a funny setup there. Now, yeah, like I said, I think these are a two good match for each other. They both have similar debate styles when it comes to sort of the bombasticness. I think you'll see that their debate styles strategically, other than sort of the surface level, maybe willing to aggressively go after each other, I think you'll see that those, my guess is, again, I haven't watched this debate yet, but my guess is there'll be contrasting debate styles. My guess is Andrew Wilson's going to try to hyper-focus on each topic on a specific thing, and Cenk's going to want to run from it and be sort of more, well, that's not fair. I don't want to say run for it. Cenk's argument's going to be more of sort of the laying the groundwork for a litany of things that Trump's done poorly instead of uniquely focusing on one issue within those. So, for example, they might say January 6th, oh, Trump said fight like hell and the violence and the alternate electors, whatever. And Andrew will probably focus on like one specific thing, is my guess. I could be totally wrong, but that's my guess. Andrew's very good, sometimes to the point of annoyance, of wanting to hyper-focus on a specific issue, making sure that we get a clear answer to that specific issue before moving on to the next step. Now, I agree with his approach to that 95% of the time, because often what happens in these debates, and it gets worse the more people you add, if it's a 2-on-2 debate or a panel debate, what happens is people just run from arguments that they think they're losing, and you oftentimes don't get a specific answer to a specific question. And so sometimes if you watch an Andrew Wilson debate, like I moderated him debating Dave Smith, and Andrew looked at that debate as it was against sort of libertarian principles versus Christian values. And Andrew wanted to know where Dave Smith's sense of morality comes from as a libertarian. And Dave was sort of more interested in having a conversation. It wasn't a combative debate. And as a moderator, it was challenging because Andrew's like, no, this is the whole debate. We're not moving on. I'll talk about this for 2 hours. You're going to answer the question. And Dave's like, well, what the hell's going on here? So sometimes it could seem like to the point of annoyance, but from Andrew's perspective of a debate, not just a good show, but a debate, and trying to have an audience or the participants figure out what are each side's stated positions as clear as possible, it makes sense why Andrew does this. So my prediction is that you'll see more of that. Cenk has sort of what I would consider an opposite approach, which is sort of to try to win a perceptual battle, right? Where it's just like, well, I'll just say a bunch of things that all might have kernels of truth to them, but I don't have to hyperfixate on specific issues and like, oh, I won that point.
you've got a volcanic one when it goes, but you've been on very good behavior since Trump won. Let's see if it lasts. Gentlemen, I joke. Welcome to both of you. Cenk, let me start with you. It's been a blizzard of stuff going on, as always in Trump world. But it seems unlike 2016, that this time there's a kind of laser focus and a plan to what Trump is doing. He's had time to think about this, time to work out what he got right and wrong first time, and he's hit the ground very hard, running very fast, really to try and send a message. Right, this is the new America. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so first of all, credit to him on both the optics and the action, right? So when a Democrat gets in office, they immediately start saying, our voters have to push us to do the right thing. And then they say, don't push, don't push, don't push. Hey, how about we elect you and you do your goddamn job, right? And for Democrats, that seems to be a really hard ask, right?
I view this as the opposite of the truth. I think that what you see is Republicans, when they get power, they always seem to default to, well, we need to work with the other side. We need to see what they could do. We see Democrats that are able to perceptually control the narrative and stymie Republicans over and over again. For example, Republicans ran on this promise of securing the border. That was a big message in 2016. They were unable to accomplish any of it. In fact, the Democrats threatened to filibuster in 2019, which led to the largest government shutdown in modern history, because they refused to give Trump $47 billion for the wall. Democrats come to play. They're basically, with a few outliers of progressive, which maybe Cenk would consider himself one, so maybe that's why he has this position. They all toe the party line. There's very little, historically, there's been very little infighting. Like in the Obama administration, you might have people in the Democratic Party that will disagree with him perceptually, but when it comes to the major votes, it seems like they're all willing to go ahead. Republicans, it seems like the opposite, particularly when it comes to Trump. And the reason is because both the Republican and Democratic Party have sort of an establishment orthodoxy, and then there are some outliers. So when you look at the Democrats, those potential outliers may be people like AOC, the Squad, Bernie Sanders, etc. When you look at the Republicans, they may be people like Thomas Massie, Trip Roy, Rand Paul, etc. So if you have a president that's like Joe Biden that basically is just part and parcel to the establishment Democrats, the only sort of dissenting voices within the Democratic Party are going to be those minority. With Trump, it's the exact opposite. Yes, Trump is the de facto leader of the party, and he is why they won in 2016 and in 2024. But the truth of the matter is, the old guard that's still running the Republicans, the Mitch McConnells, or in 2016, you had, the Paul Ryans, those sorts of people, they are at loggerheads with Trump on many issues. That's why you'll see significant Republicans that will try to vote against, like Mitch McConnell, other than Trump, even though he's basically the Joe Biden of the Republican Party. He doesn't know where he's at. It's freezing up all the time, which is disgusting, and we should talk about it more, that this dude's still in the Senate. I think he's retiring, but he would basically be, other than Trump, the most powerful Republican. He's voting against people like Pete Hegseth. It's not happening on the Democratic side. But as always, I feel that the Democrats have this perceptual victimhood mindset where it's like, they're like, we don't exercise power. We're not like those dastardly Republicans. You don't exercise power. Like, just look at what they do. They don't care. They come in, they fire all these people surrounding Trump. They don't care. Look at Sean Spicer's article that he put out. Sean Spicer got, taken off all these presidential commissions, whatever. Why? Because he's there for Trump. Biden's team didn't want him. He fought it in court, and the court was like, no, Biden has the right to do this. And Sean Spicer's like, great. Sets a good precedent. Trump's allowed to do that, too, when he wants to come in. Oh, no, that's Trump wielding power. You can't do that. The lawfare against Trump, the blatant ignoring the law of, student loan forgiveness or sorts of things like that. So I disagree with Cenk on this point.
So that's why I'm so frustrated with my own party. Trump comes in and goes, you want to see something? Boom, here we go, day one. Oh, it's signing after signing after signing, executive order after executive order. So
Don't forget, Biden had a lot of executive orders when he came in, such as on the border. It's just that all of Biden's executive orders were following through with his promises to basically virtue signal to the illegal immigrants, which is what his party wanted. So he rescinded a bunch of Trump's executive orders like day one in office. Very busy, which directly led to the disaster that we saw at the border. So, again, I disagree with this. Super chats I'll get to at regular increments or at the end of the video. So thank you so much.
Give him credit for that. Number two, give credit to Susie Wiles, who ran a brilliant campaign and now seems to be running a very tight ship as the chief of staff. Now, when it comes to the actual orders, I disagree with tons and tons of them. Some of them are expected. We're getting out of the Paris Climate Treaty, which is a disaster for us to get out of. But once Trump's elected, that's fait accompli. So it's not like you should be overly surprised by that.
That's a disaster for us to get out of. Paris Climate Accord's garbage. We're one of the only countries that met our obligations under it, even after we pulled out of it. It's just virtue signaling garbage that's designed by people that don't really care about climate change, but are concerned about controlling, particularly the middle class, the flow of energy, etc.
The pardons of the violent criminals on January 6th is unacceptable, except for the fact that it was super obvious that he was going to do it, right? And then when he gets to the absurdities like Birthright, taking away birthright citizenship, I think he does that as kind of a squirrel to distract people and get everybody to focus on that while he passes everything else, because that has no chance. That's wildly unconstitutional. And by the way, I would hope that MAGA would realize things that are unconstitutional and go, wait, we're supposed to love this document. I can't have you going outside the Constitution and outside the law.
And again, this is my bias, but this is something you see quite frequently with Democrats. Like, most Democrats don't care about originalism or the original text of the Constitution. For example, you can see how they go against things like the First Amendment, they go with things, Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, etc. They don't care, right? It's just like Christianity. When you hear atheists or Democrats that aren't Christians, that'll say, but what would Jesus do? Jesus would accept all the illegals. Jesus would, they want to hold you to principles that they know you hold yourself to, but that they themselves couldn't care less. And so always when you see, I talk about this so often, when you see the hypocrisy from the Democrats, it shows two things. One, they never cared about the thing that they're claiming to. And second, they think that you do. So the truth is, they know that most people don't like kids in cages. It might be an unfortunate necessity. There's no better answer. But we don't like that. That hurt. Like, I don't want to see any kid anywhere suffering, regardless of their nationality. Period. End of story. But they didn't care about it when it was 3 times worse under Joe Biden. They never actually cared about the kids in cages. They just cared as using it as a political point. So they focused on that issue because they didn't care about it, but they knew that you did. That's why they focused on it. Similar here when it talks about constitutionality. I wonder, did Cenk comment on Joe Biden just declaring the 28th Amendment passed on X? Or Joe Biden's clearly unconstitutional student loan forgiveness? Or the weaponization of the Justice Department? Or the FBI getting illegal warrants to spy on Trump's team in the 2016 run? Did he talk about any of that? Of course not.
Okay, Andrew, your response.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of problems here. So the first problem is these were not violent criminals who were released.
So I waited to talk about January 6th because I thought that was going to be a specific topic that they get into. Piers started it off more broadly, and I thought it was just sort of an overview. But like I said, you could see that, Andrew's wanting to jump into the meat and potatoes right out of the gate. You said this is where you're wrong.
These were political prisoners who were released. What happened is there was no fair application of the law whatsoever. These guys were being tried in D.C. There was a political witch hunt. We have more evidence every single day which provides for that. And why these guys are busy now complaining and showing us, down here on the border, we have a mom crying because she might be separated from her kid. Nobody's commenting on the fact that we have a ton of families that just got reunited. And on behalf of all of the Wilsons of the world, welcome home, January 6ers. It's guys like this that wanted to put.
It's funny. It's an interesting spin on that. That's funny. Talking about reuniting families. It is sort of he's making an argument here that's sort of what the Democrat argument is, like the breaking up of families. But it's an argument that you could make about anyone that's charged with any crime. Like if you arrest a parent for, I don't know, negligent homicide, DUI, you'd say, but you're separating him from his family. You can't do that. Do you show up a camera in the kid's face that's crying, why are they taking daddy away? Of course not. So interesting spin that he put on there.
Put you away in a dark hole, absent due process, and throw away the key. These were not violent criminals. By the way,
well, hang on. Okay, but Andrew, hang on.
Andrew,
hang on. Let me just stop you there. So I actually interviewed one of the protesters, Jacob, who was the QAnon shaman guy. And I also had a Capitol police officer who'd been working that day. And what they both agreed, very interestingly, was that they both condemned the violence against police officers that day. So if you can have one of the protesters who'd just been pardoned concede that the violence that was perpetrated by some of the protesters was wrong, unacceptable, and should be condemned, why would you categorize it as non-violent?
Well, I didn't categorize it as non-violent. I said these are not violent criminals, which is how it's being
But if you're
framed.
perpetrating violence against police officers, it is, isn't it?
What? How many? A few?
So, seems like a gotcha at Andrew, and I can understand. Andrew worded this clumsily, right? Where it's like, well, clearly there were some violence. Don't you agree? Yes. So then how could you say they're all non-violent criminals? Andrew's making the point, basically, and he could be more clear here, but he's basically making the point that these were victims of a political witch hunt, and that our system says that you prioritize guilty people going free rather than putting innocent people in jail. And when the system itself is being ran in such a political manner, so instead of smearing all these people as they're all violent, bloodthirsty maniacs, blah, 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 it's unfair to call them that. That's basically the argument he's making. But I understand Cenk's laughter here, and how could you say there was violence, but they're nonviolent? Could be worded better by Andrew. We'll see what he says.
A couple? This guy, on May 30th of 2020, the White House was under siege. It was attacked. Over 100 Secret Service agents injured. They were burning down stations. This guy said, oh, well, Trump had to go hide out in his bunker. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and Donald Trump came out and was like, oh, AOC had to go hide. Oh, these politicians had to go hide. He doesn't care about political violence. The left doesn't care about political violence at all. They'll use it when it's expedient for them. They always do, pointing to a couple of bad actors at this thing and saying all of them have to be thrown away. And, the key thrown away with them is insanity. And no, I don't think so. I think it's a miscategorization to frame all of them as violent criminals. And that's
well,
exactly
they weren't all violent.
Okay, so full disclosure again, I think this is the argument I make most frequently. When dealing with this issue is the big issue with January 6th. I completely agree that there were people that acted violently. I think that there's so much going around the situation here. I think that what we're likely to find, if we ever find out the truth, I think what's likely to be is that institutional people, up to including people in our military, people connected to John Brennan, Nancy Pelosi, etc., wanted things to get out of hand so that they could point to it and say, see, this is what Trump supporters are all about. This is what Trump's all about. And I think that they were trying to set up an escalation of violence all throughout that summer. It's one of the reasons that the narrative against Trump, when we saw particularly Democratic cities, we saw Black Lives Matter rioting over and over again, looting businesses, burning down private property, attacking law enforcement. The same people now that are telling you, oh, you have to respect law enforcement, they were making excuses for those Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters, up to the point where Trump had to threaten to send in the National Guard, and then the narrative was etched in stone that the Democrats wanted. Trump's starting to use our military against American citizens. He's a fascist. Trump didn't take that bait, which he should have. He should have sent in the National Guard. Maybe we would have avoided Kyle Rittenhouse having to kill people in self-defense. Maybe that would have happened had the National Guard. Now, of course, the National Guard being sent in isn't something that I call for lightly. I think actually what should have happened was that the local police forces were enabled to be deployed to stop this sort of violence. But it didn't go with the narrative that the Democrats were pushing. They wanted to force Trump's hand. January 6th was a similar situation. I think we'll find out. I've talked about this at great length of the person that was in charge of the defense of the Capitol today. Capitol Chief Sund has talked about how he basically feels that people in the military and people connected to Nancy Pelosi, or Sergeant at Arms in particular, ensured that he was incapable of requesting the National Guard that would have stopped the violence before it made it to the Capitol. Instead, what they wanted was that violence to make it onto the Capitol proper so that they could say, look how violent these insurrectionists are. That's my belief. It could go further than that. There's so many questions surrounding the pipe bomb, etc., what the FBI knew, all of the shady stuff that occurred around there. It could be that confidential human sources, etc., within the FBI, like other cases like the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case, like cases we saw with the Islamic shooter in Texas at the Dra Muhammad cartoons. It could be that the FBI itself, through either agents of itself or confidential human sources, were encouraging violence to occur. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but those are all certain possibilities. But they wanted this act of violence to occur. Now, they also refused to condemn or downplay the violence that we saw that was far grander and worse that occurred all throughout the summer of 2020. Why was it worse? Well, one, quantitatively, it was worse, because it happened many times, many days, and affected many more people. Secondly, the specifics of it were worse because the violent mobs actually killed people. None of that occurred on January 6th. There were people that died, but they were all on the other side of the ledger. Third, it was worse because it attacked private property. And as bad as attacking public institutions is, and I by no means am I saying that that's something that should be done, in many ways, it's actually worse to attack private property. If you feel, for example, that the government is corrupt or systemically racist, attacking someone's private property, burning it to the ground, looting it, etc., is in no way, shape, or form morally defensible. At least you could make an argument if you think that government is corrupt, then you attack that government building. Again, not one I agree with, but perceptually at least makes sense. Now, the truth of the matter is, like I mentioned earlier, people like Cenk, they don't care at all about this violence. When it was violence being done in the name of Democrats, they were more than happy to downplay it. Mostly peaceful, right? Even though when we saw people were dying, law enforcement was being harmed, people's personal property was being destroyed, they didn't care. Always downplay it. Always downplay it. It's the language of the unheard. And then comes May 30th, 2020. Now, I don't know how much Andrew is going to get into it, but he makes the right argument here. And I have to admit, I've waited to debate Cenk or Mehdi Hassan on this specific topic for years now, based on the commentary that they made after May 30th, 2020. Now, you wouldn't know if you only consumed the mainstream news, but there was a violent attack on our White House that evening, May 30th going into May 31st, 2020. In the name of the George Floyd protest, things got out of hand in D.C., as we knew that they would. Violent rioters started to attack the White House grounds. Outside the White House, there's sort of a perimeter that was set up around sort of a, I don't know what the word you would use is, sort of a quad. And so they had temporary fencing set up, etc., to prevent people from getting closer to the White House. Over and over again, those Secret Service people and law enforcement were pushed back. A building that was temporarily set up as a guard station was burned to the ground, unlike any building on January 6th. They continued to attack law enforcement. The report said it was with chemical agents, bludgeoning weapons, laser pointers designed to blind them. There's video of this. You can see I covered it on the night as it was occurring. I covered these riots. People were talking how they were attacking Secret Service. They got up to the White House fence in an attempt to get into the White House before they were eventually pushed back. That's how close they came to our White House. The difference between that and January 6th is one of the worst kept secrets in our country was how violent these lefties were over and over. We saw what they did in Trump's inauguration in 2016. We saw how the left engaged in violence anytime they thought there was an excuse for police brutality, etc., with the Trayvon Martin stuff, with the Michael Brown stuff. So everyone in every city where they knew that there was going to be a Black Lives Matter protest knew that there was a good chance that violence would erupt. And so they had an adequate police presence to stop it from getting into buildings like the White House. When it comes to Trump supporters, you can count the number of times on the hand that there was violence occurred at their rallies other than mutual combat between like Antifa and Proud Boys type people. Charlottesville, if you want to consider that Trump supporters, and January 6th. The truth is, most people expected those rallies to go off without a hitch. Now, the narrative now from the Democrats is, oh, the FBI and all these organizations had evidence that there was about to be a violent insurrection that was targeting congresspeople and Mike Pence in an attempt to kill them. But they also felt that it wasn't important enough to actually have adequate security there. So much so that we're told that Nancy Pelosi, Sergeant-at-Arms, under the word of Nancy Pelosi, and career military personnel, Lieutenant General, said, nah, we think this is a violent insurrection about to overthrow the government, but we can't send in the National Guard because of optics. That's the narrative that we're told to believe by the Democrats. So while this occurred, I know I'm being a bit wordy here, but it's important to set the stage because many of you may have never heard about May 30th, 2020. That's the difference. There was adequate police presence there to push them back because the Democrats didn't have interest in a narrative that left-wingers broke into the White House in an effort to get Donald Trump. But nonetheless, the threat was taken so seriously by the Secret Service that they had to move Trump to a secure bunker. That's how serious they took the threat. And our national media, punditry, and just in general Democrats, some of them took to making fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. By their own definitions that they tried to use about January 6th, this would qualify as an insurrection. And yet they didn't take it solemnly. The FBI didn't have a massive task force. In fact, my research has found maybe only 2 people that were arrested in the whole thing. Hundreds of Secret Service agents armed. There wasn't a mass outcry. There wasn't sedition hunters where everyone's face that was at that riot was put up on TV so that children could turn in their parents. Didn't happen. The man who would become president, Joe Biden, 2 weeks after this, told Trump that he ought to, quote, stay in his bunker and shut his mouth. That's right, Joe Biden himself making fun of Donald Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. And in this specific debate, Andrew is correct to point this out. I wish he would have done a better job, specifically saying, Cenk, this is exactly what you did. Instead, he leaves it a little vague so the audience might not understand. Cenk Uygur himself went to X, then Twitter, multiple times, including right after May 30th, and made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. Hashtag bunker boy. It was the top trending hashtag on Twitter. Ha ha! Violent rioters attacked the White House and Trump was so afraid he had to move to a bunker. Now look at their outrage over January 6th. 100% performative. Andrew Wilson absolutely nails him. Absolutely. The truth is, they'll say things like, again, go back to the kids in cages. Andrew, kids in cages are bad. Here's a kid that was in a cage under Trump. And they expect to be able to have this moral high ground. You could never defend kids in cages. You're just wrong. And then when you're like, but Cenk, when there were 10 times more kids in cages under Biden, you made fun of them. You're like, oh, look at these little shits. They deserve to be in cages. Why the double standard? One, it shows they don't care about what they're pretending to. And second, it shows that they know you do. They know that the average conservative doesn't like the fact that there was violence that occurred on January 6th. They might blame the police more. They might say that it was overinflated in the media and the Democrats. But the Democrats don't give a shit about that. They don't care at all. Not all of them, but people like Cenk. Why is it evidenced? Because they made fun of Trump when he had to be moved to a bunker. When violent insurrectionists, their words, not mine, attacked the White House on May 30th, 2020. They voted for a guy named Joe Biden who also made fun of Trump. Now remember, these same Democrats supported the Colorado Supreme Court decision that said that Trump ought to be taken off the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And as evidence, they said he incited an insurrection or participated in an insurrection because he said things like, fight like hell. Do you think for a moment if Donald Trump came out after January 6th and was like, look at these crying cowards like Adam Kissinger. They had to be moved to a secure location. Bunker boy. Do you think for a second that wouldn't have been included in that Colorado court case as evidence that Trump participated in an insurrection? And yet when Joe Biden does it, when Cenk Uygur does it, when other members of the media does it, they're like, oh, it's just a joke, no big deal. That's how you know their outrage over January 6th is performative. They didn't care when the White House was attacked, May 30th. They made fun of Trump for it. But all they've done since January 6th is clutch their pearls. All right. Maybe. Here we go.
Cool. I mean,
that's what he was doing. That's what he was framing it, though.
Yeah, no, listen, I don't, and Cenk, I do not agree with that. I don't think all the 1,500 were violent. In fact, we know for a fact they weren't. A lot of them were not convicted in violence.
Yeah, I didn't say that at all.
That.
So, look.
Cenk didn't say those words. He didn't say they were all violent. Andrew's right that perceptually, that's the narrative that's been painted. Andrew needs to do a better job of delineating why everyone needed to be pardoned if he's conceding that there were a small amount that were violent. And he's already given the answer, but he needs to buckle down on it because the entire system was corrupt in two ways. One, it was corrupt in how it handled all these trials. You could see the more you dig into these trials that the judges were more interested in optics and show trials. They withheld exculpatory evidence. We had agents that were on the ground that lied about things that were going on. They all had to be tried in D.C., which was a tainted jury pool. They weren't allowed to be moved from that pool. And then the other reason it was corrupt is the blatant double standard that the FBI and other institutions went after these people versus how they went after violent lefties that were rioting for political reasons. The truth is that we cannot have a system of justice that is two-tiered. We can't have a system of justice that says we'll prosecute every jaywalker if they're Republican, but none if they're Democrat. We can't have that. It either has to be prosecute both groups or prosecute neither. And because they chose to be so light-handed on the Democrats and Democratic voters that rioted over and over and over again for political reasons, and then chose to be as aggressive as possible going after the January 6th people, the best thing to do to move forward as a country was either to, one, aggressively try to lock up all of these left-wingers that rioted in the summer of 2020, including large investigations into politicians and media members that were saying things that we find insightful. This would include people like Maxine Waters, AOC, Joe Biden, Cenk Uygur, etc. Or you pardon all of the January 6 people in an attempt to try to move forward. So I think we'll see if Andrew gets to those arguments, but I think that would where he needs to go. But pointing out the double standard of Cenk, and again, I hope that Andrew holds his feet more to the fire here. We're talking about you personally, Cenk. You personally made fun of Trump. Why? And now you're going to pretend to take January 6th importantly?
No, all right, whatever, dude. So on the Young Turks, we've been super clear about this. And as always, we're the one guys setting people who are fair. You'll see both sides do all this extreme stuff like Andrew's doing. So first of all, the people who went to the speech of Donald Trump, a lot of times they get thrown into this. And I have always said, no, that's not fair. They didn't go down to the Capitol. For the people who went to the Capitol, it's an obvious crime to break into the Capitol. And why were they doing that? They were trying to overturn the results of the election. So you could blah, blah, blah on all your talking points, but it's absurdity. Obviously, they were trying to hurt our democracy. They were trying to steal that election. And
What was happening May 30th, and what was happening with the people that rioted during the inauguration? And again, yes, there are a bunch of people that thought the election was stolen and thought that they saw evidence of it, particularly COVID being used as an excuse to change the rules, that they then thought led to a bunch of shady stuff happening with mail-in ballots, right or wrong. That's what they felt. They wanted that to be dealt with, investigated, etc. That's not an attack on democracy any more than saying Democrats that feel that rioted or protested because they feel that Donald Trump stole an election because Russia tried to interfere, which, remember, a YouGov poll in 2018 showed that 2/3 of Democrats believed that Russia personally hacked voting machines to change results in favor of Donald Trump. Something there was never any proof of whatsoever. And yet 2/3 of Democrats believe that. But the point is, notice how he's not answering for the double standard. It's always couched in this hyperbolic language. Oh, it's an attack on democracy. It's never an attack on democracy when the left does things. That's never an attack on democracy. Was the assassination attempt an attack on democracy? Was when Steve Scalise got shot an attack on democracy? Was when Rand Paul got attacked an attack on democracy? When they attacked ICE facilities, was that an attack on democracy? When they attack police stations, is that an attack on democracy? No, it's never couched in that sort of language, is it? And so they get away with this stuff with all but impunity. Yeah, that's bad. Basically, whitewash it away. And then predictably, when the other side says, oh, that's the rules of engagement, you get to riot when things don't go your way, and then a small handful of people do that in a larger rally, they say, see, predictably, see, this is the worst thing ever. But notice Cenk doesn't answer the accusation. He's just like, no, we call balls and strikes on both sides. Then Cenk, why are you making fun of Trump when he had to be moved to a bunker? Is that balls and strikes? Let's see if he answers it.
Some of them violent? Were all of them violent? No. Were some of them violent? Obviously. We have eyes and ears. So you can do all the propaganda you want, but we just watch the tape of them trying to beat the crap out of the cops. I thought you guys cared about cops. I care about crime. I'm against crime. And, we take heat sometimes from the left because they think that crime is a right-wing narrative and doesn't actually exist. Well, the voters just showed you it does exist, and they're pissed about it. But they're also pissed about it when you go beat up cops for Trump. So, look, I'm past it because the American people voted. They put Trump back in office, and that's pretty definitive. I didn't want that, but it happened, right? But if you're going to try to do...
He's not past it. His opening statement talked about the problems with pardoning January 6ers. So if he's like, yeah, I'm past it, the American people... Yes, the American people voted, and they knew that Donald Trump ran on a promise of pardoning a lot of January 6 people, if not all of them. So when he says, I'm over it, the people voted, that's not true. That's why this topic came up.
Revisionist history that these were some patriots who showed up for a picnic, but oh golly gee, there was a Capitol, so they started to bust in and beat the living crap out of the cops. And oh, he lost the election, but oh no, it was stolen. So they go and try to do a coup attempt. I hate it. I think it's a terrible
coup attempt. What made it a coup attempt? And again, what this does is it whitewashes the events that actually occurred on January 6th and the events we saw on May 30th and all the other violent wing, left wing attacks. Why were none of them called coups? When they took the Chaz zone and they took 6 city blocks for multiple weeks, was that an insurrection? Was that a coup? Huh. That's different. I bet they didn't use that language then. Did they? Now here's the truth. There are people that engaged in acts of violence on January 6th and they deserve to be punished. They should have been punished proportionately to what the people that were on the left that engaged in acts of violence attacking police officers all throughout that summer were treated. Many of those people that attacked police on on the Summer of Love, they got large settlements, is what they got, instead of jail time. Nonetheless, that's the proportionality that we should do. The law has to be applied equally, or as equal as possible, particularly when it comes across a spectrum such as political identity. You can't charge Republicans one way and Democrats another. You can't do that. And that's what's occurring. The other thing that it ignores is even though violence occurred, and I'm not excusing, in fact, I condemned violence on January 6th. On January 6th, 2020, I have a video that's still up on places like Odyssey where you can see that. I was maybe the first right-wing commentator to condemn forms of violence, and certainly some occurred. Many of those people have spent 2-3 years in prison already. So for the greater good, I have no problem pardoning them. But if you watch the actual videos of what was occurring, yeah, if you just watch the end result, look, there's a guy clashing with police. But do they talk about the police shooting rubber bullets and tear gas into peaceful protesters beforehand? They talk about the police rushing in and attacking people beforehand? No, they don't, do they? But they're quick to do that if it was a black civil rights movement, and I just showed you pictures of a black man punching a police officer and said, look at that! That was Martin Luther King's rally? That happened there? My God! They would say, wait a minute, what's the greater context? Yeah, my son was born 3 days after January 6th. His due date was January 6th, 2020. He was born January 9th. But notice he hasn't answered that he made fun of Trump for being in a bunker. He just said, no, we wouldn't do that. We take violence against police seriously. Really? Then why did you downplay it by making fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker?
Precedent, and I think every time you guys defend it, you sound absurd, and it sounds like overwhelming, ridiculous propaganda.
Andrew?
Yeah, what it's about is a fair application of law. And there has not been fair application of law here. Cenk himself cannot even do fair application of law. At the same time, he says, oh, they're trying to coup and overthrow the democracy. It's exactly what happened May 30th when they were attacking the White House. They were attacking Secret Service agents. They wanted to get in there. And all he could do was whine about how Trump had to get sent to a bunker. Where was his outrage about the coup d'etat? Where was he when Black Lives Matter was burning down cities?
There was no coup
Nowhere.
on May 30th. It was a protest.
He was saying instead, Cenk didn't interrupt.
Did you see that? May 30th wasn't a coup, it was a protest. Define coup. They injured over 100 Secret Service and law enforcement people using weapons that could be considered lethal, burnt down a building in an attempt to break into the White House. What do you think they were going to do if they got into the White House? Shake Trump's hand? Hi, Mr. President. Thanks for inviting us in. You think that's what they were going to do? That's what you think was going to happen? Why were they using violence in an attempt to get in if they just really wanted to get in and meander about the... Now, didn't he just criticize the straw man that he made about Andrew Wilson and said, oh, you said that they're just all having a picnic on January 6th. And yet, that's exactly what he wants to do then. Notice how the standard's completely different? Now, I know, and this is a little unfair, from listening to Andrew debate about these things in the past, and he happens to agree with me on this, I wouldn't call May 30th, 2020 an insurrection or a coup, but I also wouldn't call January 6th an insurrection or a coup. But when you ask these people, well, define insurrection or coup, they'll come up with a definition that's so broad so that they can say, see, January 6th falls into that. Oh, it's, but violence, multiple people gathered together breaking the law for a political agenda. Okay, that's basically Black Lives Matter in a nutshell. So that's a coup. That's an insurrection, right? Well, no, that's just a protest that got out of hand. That's all that is. There wasn't a coup. Them attacking the White House and trying to get to Donald Trump, that was just a protest that got a little out of hand. That's all it was. But January 6th is an insurrection, a coup, and you're making it sound like a picnic. Andrew's like, listen, you as an individual made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker when 100 Secret Service agents were injured, when violent lefties attacked the White House on May 30th, 2020. You not only didn't take it seriously, you made fun of Trump for having to be moved. And that's basically the tenor that almost all of the Democrats made. Either they ignored it, or they made fun of Trump, etc. Then on January 6th, you're like, most serious thing ever, oh my God, clutching pearls for years afterwards. Secondly, Andrew says, there's a double standard in the application of law, how the FBI and politicians have treated this. And Cenk proves Andrew's point by immediately being like, May 30th wasn't a coup. That's different. It was different. It was just, it was just a little mistake. That's all it was, a little mistake. So it was okay that violent lefties had tried to attack Donald Trump and I made fun of Trump for it because it wasn't a big deal. That's Andrew's entire argument. You've treated these things with a double standard. Now, is it true that they're not one, like any two situations that have ever occurred in the world, they're not one-to-one a comparison, but they're close enough. And the fact that right now, in literally within a 1-minute segment, Cenk strawmans Andrew and says, oh, you're saying January 6th was just a picnic, which he never said, and then instantly goes to when talking about May 30th, when he himself, not some abstract, this is what Republicans, this is what Democrats said, Cenk himself made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. His go-to right out of the way is to downplay the violence. It wasn't that big of a deal. Wasn't a coup.
Up you once. Do you think calm down for me? So anyway, what's going on very simply is that he has the revisionist history, while at the same time the Democrats are saying you got to stay home and stay masked up. They're telling other people go outside, burn down cities, make Chaz chop, a nice free independent zone. I don't know how you could say that that's anything other than an insurrection, to say that this is now no longer part of the United States government, have your own armed militia there, the entire 9 yards. May 30th, they attack. And this guy says nothing. Suddenly, J6, though, oh my God, they're violent extremists. They're going to overthrow democracy. It's all nonsense. It's not fairly applied. He's never fairly applied it. The laws has never been fairly applied to the J6ers. They were tried in D.C., not in front of impartial juries. And here's how our law works. Our law works like this. 1,000 walk free, so one guilty person doesn't spend a day in prison. That is the precedent for our law. That's why they got pardoned, and it's exactly why they should have.
He misspoke a little. It's that we would rather 1,000 guilty go free than one innocent person be jailed. That's what he's saying, and I think everyone understands that's what he's saying here. That's absolutely correct. Our legal system is foundationally founded on the principle that it's innocent until proven guilty, and that there's as close to possible as equal application to law. Now, there's going to be unequal application that are built into the system, such as if you're a billionaire, you probably have access to a better legal defense than if you're poor. But we're supposed to try to limit those disparate advantages as much as possible. And instead, what we see here are advantages being conferred based on your political orientation. Democrats get treated with kid gloves in almost every institution, whether it be the actual law enforcement themselves, or the investigators like the FBI that come afterwards, or the judges, or the prosecutors, or the media that's covering it. All of it is treated as harshly as possible over people that are supposedly connected to MAGA, but as lightly as possible when it comes to people that are connected to Democrats that are rioting when it comes to the 2020. Let me give you an example, one of the easiest examples of how you could see this. How many law enforcement officers were killed on January 6th? Does anyone know? How many were killed? Because we routinely hear, 3, 4, 5. Brian Sicknick was killed. No, he wasn't. He died of natural causes afterwards. No evidence connected to, they had every incentive to find and point the finger at January 6th people. They meticulously went through the video evidence and couldn't see any incident that would have led to his natural cause medical condition. But what about the other officers that killed themselves afterwards? How many times have you heard that? But after January 6th, months afterwards, several officers committed suicide. So therefore, the Democrats say, see, January 6th people were responsible. Do you think they ever did a study in city after city after city after city after city that saw riots in 2020 by left-wing rioters? You think they ever did a study on how many of those law enforcement officers killed themselves? Have you ever heard one report of that? For example, in Minneapolis, where they burned down a police station, do we have a report on how many law enforcement officers committed suicide within the next 2 years? Just curious. Why not? If Democratic politicians and media apparatchiks want to say, we should blame that on those violent rioters like on January 6th, they do it on January 6th. Why aren't they doing it here? It's just the easiest way to see the blatant double standard in the way people look at these things. Or, in the way Andrew's done it even more succinctly, you yourself, Cenk, made fun of Trump. I wish you would have spent more time on that. You called him bunker boy and bunker bitch. So did Biden. Made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. How can you then sit here and claim that you care about political violence? You didn't care about the 100 Secret Service people that were injured that day as they were trying to desperately protect the President of the United States? And it was such a threat that the Secret Service had to move Trump to a bunker. You didn't give a shit about them. You made fun of Trump for having to be moved. And now you're going to sit here and say, no, we call balls and strikes. We'd never do that. Bullshit. Yeah, we're an hour and 10 minutes in, and I'm 10 minutes into the debate. So yeah, you can see why debate reviews take a long time for me.
Yeah, and Andrew, on the ending the birthright
Can I
citizenship.
just address
hang on, Cenk. I'll come to you in a moment. Response. On what Cenk mentioned also about the ending the birthright citizenship is one of the executive orders. Do you think Trump intends to do that? Because it seems to me he's already won the debate about illegal immigrants who are here are criminals in America.
Yep.
Everyone pretty much agrees they should be sent back, including the million who've already been processed but haven't been deported yet. So all of that seems to be very popular, but there is a lot of anger about the idea that you may end what seems to be a very American thing, the very ethos of the country, this birthright citizenship. What do you feel?
It's a very un-American thing. The 14th, or I'm sorry, this was never, by the way, never set up so that people could come in, have a baby, and then anchor themselves to the child. And that's what's been going on. And it's been going on for years. We know it's been going on for years. This was designed for things like for immigrants who came in legally. They have children here. Of course, those are United States citizens. Nobody's disputing that. What we're disputing is that you can just come in illegally, have a child on American soil, and then try to anchor yourself to that child. That is not in the spirit of what we're even talking about.
So I agree with Andrew here with one brief caveat. There are some people that are arguing, even if you're here on something like a visa, like an H-1B visa, and you have a kid while here, that doesn't mean that the spirit of it is that that kid would be an American citizen. And I sort of agree with that. I think that there should be room for people that have come and been of great benefit to our country and have assimilated, that they then have children here, but they themselves aren't quite citizens yet, for that child to be eligible to be a citizen for being born here. But how many other countries would that be the case? For example, if I'm working and I'm on a business trip in Germany, and while I'm there, I bring my wife with me and she has a kid, is that a German citizen? Even though I was welcomed into the country for this business trip. It seems like, and now I'm not a student of history on this point exactly, but it seems like a lot of this had to do with like questions of slavery. Slaves weren't considered citizens. They had children here. Their children should automatically be considered slaves. That was part of it. And then it was also about people that were here, that were working hard, that may not themselves have been American citizens, but were on the path to that were great people that were helping this country, that maybe weren't born in this country and weren't citizens yet, and they have children here. What we can all agree of, the spirit wasn't that people blatantly violate our laws, come here, have a child, and then say, that child's an American citizen, and now you have to allow me to stay, because you can't just have this infant that's an American citizen be here without his parents. That would be monstrous. And that's the sort of thing that's been taken advantage of our goodwill over and over again. That is not within the spirit of what the idea was of being an American. That's not what it is. Now, there are questions on the legality, and was the 14th Amendment written so poorly that, unfortunately, we have to change it, and those sort of things are allowed. And, of course, with establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats that are inclined to want to have that system be exploited, will they continue to do so? Yeah, that's problematic. But the spirit of it, Andrew's absolutely right. That's not what the intent was. We could right now have a foreign spy fly into the United... You could have a member of Al-Qaeda, two members of Al-Qaeda, husband and wife, come into the United States, terrorists designed trying to subvert the United States and attack it. And as they're here illegally, trying to attack the United States, their child is born. That child's an American citizen. They could then take that child back, only having been in America for a handful of days when they were born, back to their country, and still 30 years later, that child's an American citizen. Brady, yes, you're right. The best way to change this would be through Congress. They're the ones that are supposed to create law. The president's supposed to enforce the law. Unfortunately, the precedent's been set over and over again that so much of our law is created through the executive branch. So I'll listen to people complain that had all sorts of complaints about the Democrats and how they just create law through executive agencies. For example, the Constitution's quite clear. Who has the power to declare war? Is it the president? Now, name me the last time that Congress has declared war. They do it in Iraq. They do it in Afghanistan. They do it in Libya. What's up, Rachel? How you doing? You're sick. I hope you don't have that shit that me and my family had. It lasted forever. It was like 10 days. I think we all had the flu. And then unfortunately, because I do home health care, a lot of people that I work with have been getting it as well. It sucks, man. It's been a bad flu season. I had a worse time having whatever illness I had this time, I think it was the flu, than I did when I had COVID. COVID wasn't that bad at all. But I know I did not have COVID this time because through my work, anytime we get sick, we have to do a COVID test. So me and all the people that work in my house all had COVID tests and they were all negative. But yeah, I hope you get better soon, Rachel. Hey, sit here, watch me review your husband's bait. He's doing fantastic. All right, let's keep moving.
About. Of course, Trump wants to end it. It's bad policy across the board. It's always been bad policy across the board. And I hope the Supreme Court, it gets challenged by the Supreme Court so we could get it in front of them so that they can interpret it correctly, because that's not the way this is supposed to be applied.
Cenk?
Yeah, so first let me address what he said, and then I'll come back to this. So look, guys, what happened on May 30th was nothing but a protest. But if they attack Secret Service guys, then they should be arrested. That's a violent crime. I'm principled on both of those things.
Cenk's not. If he was principled, why did he make fun of Trump? If he's principled on both of those, can you show me to him making fun of AOC after January 6th? If he has equal application, he's saying, oh, May 30th was just a protest. And yeah, some people attack police. If it was just a protest, why did Secret Service have to move Trump to a bunker? Why did Cenk then make fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker? Why did Joe Biden make fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker? You're not principled. That's not saying, oh my God, this is terrible. It's sweeping up for it and downplaying the violence that occurred that day. When you do it, it's a violent insurrection against the country. When my people do it, it's just a protest. It was a misunderstanding. But yeah, that's bad too. Anyways, I'm going to go back to making fun of Trump. It's bullshit.
Portland, when they took over a portion of the city, I was against it. Like, well, that's not a thing. You don't get to take over a portion of a city. I was against it when gangs took over apartment complexes and buildings in Colorado. So if Trump stays with things that the American people are in favor of, getting rid of the violent felons that are undocumented here, that's going to be very popular, whether the left likes it or doesn't like it, right? But when he goes too far and he goes to things like birthright citizenship, then people are going to push back. And that's when it gets interesting.
First off, in general, Cenk's not wrong here. Yeah, there are a lot of things that Democrats told us were monstrous and unpopular that it turns out that they're actually very popular, like mass deportations. But yeah, if he does things that people consider not popular, they'll probably voice their disapproval of that. And, right, this is the excellent political commentary of Cenk Uygur here. Right. If Trump does things that people like, they'll support him. If he does things that they don't, then they might not like that. Great. Okay. We'll see how many people disapprove of birthright citizenship. That's fine. There's one question of how popular it would be and a second question of, is it legal? Those are the two different questions. But what I will say is this. According to the most recent poll I saw of Quinnipiac, Democrats' popularity as a whole are at all-time lows in my lifetime, I believe. They have like 30-something% approval. They're underwater. Meanwhile, Trump's at almost historic highs since he's been a president, including in his first term. His popularity is over 50%. Even when he won in his first term, his popularity was usually under 50%. So yeah, can it be that Trump possibly will go too far? Maybe. But I don't understand that the point that Cenk's trying to make here, is there mass disapproval? Yeah, in Cenk's circle of friends and in the rabid lefty media culture, yeah, they're foaming at the mouth at every single thing Trump does. By the way, that's another problem with the cry wolf strategy. Where do they have to go further than Trump's Nazi, Hitler, puppet of Putin? That was their message for 4 years the first time. Now the guy wins re-election. After that was their message again going into this election. So where do they have to go? All right, let's keep going.
Is Trump going to double down and go, no, I'm going to, go to demagogue on this and get you people to hate foreigners coming in, etc. And I don't care what the Constitution says, and we're going to change the way America is, and you're no longer an American if you're born here. We're going to judge you based on where you're from, etc. That'll be very unpopular. Does he dig in, or does he, as he does sometimes, go, man, you know what? I gave it a shot, didn't work, and.
But notice that what Cenk does there is he sort of attributes to Trump things that haven't even been remotely suggested. Yes, what he's alluding to is there are people that are Trump voters that are basically making the argument we're saying that many people that already are American citizens shouldn't be American citizens, like Vivek. There's a lot of people that are saying, screw that, what Vivek said about American education, American culture, screw this guy, we don't care. You're not really American anyways because your family came from wherever. But Trump's not said that. In fact, Trump and his team have been battling against that mindset, much to the chagrin of many of the people that think that this is sort of selling out American citizens.
Retract. I hope that that's the direction he goes, because this whole, look, brother, if you have a problem with a part of the Constitution, you need to go through the right process. You need to go and do an amendment. Like, I want to do an amendment to get money out of politics. But when Biden was in office, I didn't think he should just come in and go, forget what the Supreme Court said. Forget what the Constitution said. Let's go nuts and do whatever the hell we want. That's not how it works.
But that's what the Biden administration did, and how strong did Cenk vocalize against that? Such as when he knew, there's admissions that he knew that his student loan forgiveness would be overruled. He knew it wasn't constitutional. And yet he went forward with it anyways. Maybe Cenk called it out. I don't know. I'm highly suspicious that didn't occur.
Well, gee, I never thought about that. I didn't know that we were supposed to go through a process of law for these things, which is exactly what Trump is doing via his executive order, which then hopefully will get it in front of the Supreme Court, which looks like that's what the plan is.
That's part of the legal process.
By the way, just so you know, the interpretation of this, that's what we're really talking about, is the interpretation. Ultimately here, it is not, and you need to agree with me on this, it is not in the spirit that you can come in and have a child here and anchor yourself to the child specifically so that you have some pathway or motivation to citizenship. You say it's not a part of the legal process. Yes, these challenges, getting in front of the Supreme Court, getting in front of various courts, is part of the process. It's been done this way time and time and time again. Also, I reject categorically what you said, just lied to the audience. You called Trump bunker boy, right? He was going down to the bunker during the protest to inspect it. Ha, 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 right? You didn't care at all.
Yeah.
You weren't denouncing political violence. You weren't denouncing these people getting beat up. You didn't care when the violence is on your side like a typical Democrat. You don't care at all, Cenk.
Now, notice the difference in debate styles here. Now, clearly, I'm biased, as I'm admitting, and I'm sort of expounding upon sort of the arguments and not stylistically of what's going on. So to take a moment stylistically, I think that you can see what my prediction was is actually true. Andrew's like, like a wolf on a hunt. Like, he bites his teeth in and he's going to stick on that argument. This argument, particularly January 6th, Cenk starts out his opening statement, and it's, like I said, it would be more broad. Which, I'll be honest, even though I typically like to hyper-focus in on specific arguments, when I'm giving an opening statement, usually what I do is make it a brief abstract of all of the arguments I'm going to make. So if someone would say, like, why do you prefer Trump over Kamala Harris? I would make an argument that would be something like this for my opening statement. I think in looking at comparing between Trump and Kamala, we should look at the records of the Kamala Biden administration versus the 4 years we saw under the Trump administration. And in 3 areas, I think that Trump is far more successful. The first would be our border and securing our country. I think it's evident that his policies led to a more secure border. The second would be economics. I think particularly before the pandemic, Trump's economy was doing fantastic. Biden's economy has been abysmal, and he's downplayed how abysmal it's been the whole time. And foreign policy. The world was largely peaceful under Donald Trump, but under Biden, we can see conflicts that are spurring up all over the place. That's sort of, there's not a lot of depth there. So I can't criticize Cenk for doing sort of what I would do in an opening statement. But you notice that Andrew eschews that, and he's just like, man, we're going to talk about January 6th right off the gate. And the first argument he makes is, this is performative. Your outrage at January 6th is performative because when we saw on May 30th violent left-wingers attack the White House, you made fun of Trump when the Secret Service had to move him to a bunker. Cenk hasn't answered that. He's deflected. And notice, Andrew's doing a good job of responding to the questions that the moderator asks him. So the moderator will be like, what do you think about birthright citizenship? He gives his honest answer. Cenk responds, briefly talks about January 6th type stuff again, or the stuff Andrew said. And Andrew right back, like that wolf on the hunt, right back to saying, Cenk's full of shit. He still has an answer for what he said about Trump being bunker boy. It's tremendous, and I think that performatively, it really sets the standard for people watching of how disingenuous Cenk's being here. You don't get to say that you take all of this political violence seriously. When we saw left-wingers attack the White House and try to break in to get Trump, that was so serious that the Secret Service had to move Trump, that 100 Secret Service members were injured, and Cenk's immediate response was to insult Trump and make fun of him for having to be moved to a bunker. Now he's trying to say after January 6th in his performative, oh my God, this is so serious, I would obviously condemn all sorts of political violence. And kudos to Andrew for reading those quotes and holding Cenk's feet to the fire here. It's really tremendous. It really is that Andrew was able to come up with those quotes and be able to do that. It's good stuff.
You don't care. And you've never cared. The only reason you care now is because you want to kiss.
And I condemn it every time people do violence.
Snake.
Literally
okay,
every
I'll say
time.
Snake. But the thing is, Snake, is that you're just trying to kiss the right wing's ass now to get back in with them because you.
Now, I will say, I think that Andrew should have separated this argument, right? I do think that this is sort of conflating because yes, there is a separate argument about Cenk personally, where he's now trying to be buddy-buddy with people like Turning Point USA, etc., because he sees the writing on the wall, and that's where audiences are going to be. But I would have kept Cenk's feet to the fire of like, how? No, you're not getting away with it. Because by bringing up this argument, now it's going to leave Cenk again run away from the January 6th commentary or the May 30th commentary, and now he's going to focus on, I don't kiss right-wingers' asses.
The left has categorically rejected you, and that's what's actually happening.
Cenk, is that what's happening?
Snake is a good way. Name.
Yeah, this guy amuses me. So, like, you think calling me Snake is going to somehow win you the debate? Good luck with that childish.
I already won the debate.
Way of going. Oh, you did because you said it. Okay, that.
Look at Piers laughing. Pretty funny. And I'll admit, I find Cenk's mannerisms to be quite funny. You know, if I was Cenk, the next time I debated Andrew, I'd go Snake Plissken's down, put an eye patch on. I'd embrace the name, but.
By the way, another great debating tactic. Just saying you won. And second of all, we have 27 million. How many times do I have to say this? 27 million subscribers, 30 billion lifetime views. You're a pimple on my ass. I literally don't even know who you are. So you come in here talking about audience?
It's interesting. I don't mind Cenk saying this, like, oh, your debate tactics, just saying you won and calling me names. And then immediately, like, you're a pimple on my ass, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But still makes for entertainment.
And you're a snake. Okay, you're a turtle. You're a scorpion.
Audience.
Whatever. Do I win now?
I didn't say anything about audience. What are you talking about? Are you a lunatic?
You did. You just said, oh, yeah, the left wing's audience has got a problem with it. I know the left wing better than he does. Oh, yeah,
you're trying to cozy up with right-wingers. What were you doing at TPUSA, Cenk? Trying to cozy in with right-wingers like Charlie Kirk, kissing their ass. You're literally kissing up to them because you want in good, because the left is rejecting center-left policies now. That's what's happening.
Hey, brother,
they either want to go far left or far right.
Okay, listen, brother. As you see me bitch-slapping you right here on national airwaves.
The only thing you can bitch slap.
What part of that seems like cozying up?
That's a good line. The only thing you bitch slaps a cheeseburger. Now, again, it's funny. Cenk criticizes Andrew and says, you say you won, and therefore, oh, what a terrible strategy. And then he immediately is like, and I'm bitch slapping you in this debate. Okay.
What's a part of that seems like cozying up to the right? I think you're an idiot. I think you love that coup.
Name calling. He said, don't name call. Good stuff.
On January 6th, I think you hate our democracy. I think you hate our Constitution. So what part of that is cozying up to the right wing? Bitch?
I hate snakes like you who try to get in as good as you can with a weak right like Charlie Kirk when you have weaponized political violence yourself.
Oh, Charlie Kirk is weak right and you're strong right.
At the same time, at the same time, you say, wait a second. Oh, I can't believe the J6ers coup d'etat. You didn't give a damn. You've never given a damn. We have your words on record. You flip-flop. You're the biggest flip-flopper on the left. You're known for it. People make fun of you for it because you move positions. You and Anna Kasparian both move positions like a tube of toothpaste.
Oh, Trump. I love Trump. Oh, I love Trump.
And And again, notice how Cenk gets away. Have you heard word one? I know this is fun, right? Okay. Right? And look, Piers, this is good for Andrew, and it's good for Cenk. In this sense, this is the type of back and forth that is bombastic, that'll get these people invited to shows. That's good. You know, it's good for Piers. It's good for his viewership, right? And I don't mind any of it. I find it to be entertaining. But have you heard Cenk answer at all for his comments about Trump being into a bunker? Has anyone? I'm not. What do you mean Andrew also gets away? Come on, Rob. What am I saying? Yes, agreed. They're both intentionally being bombastic right now, name calling, etc. Rachel, thanks for the super chat. $5 says Jake Rattlesnake showed a video of his son Piker and Cenk talking about Andrew on a live stream back in July, so he's lying here. Oh, well, there you go. But has Cenk answered that at all? Is anyone? I'm watching it just like you. I've seen little clips here. I've seen clips of this sort of interaction, but this is my first time watching the full debate. I haven't heard Cenk respond to that once. Literally, the one recurrent theme that you can see throughout every time Andrew's got to speak is, you claim to care about political violence, but when May 30th, when violent left-wingers attacked the White House, injuring 100 Secret Service people, so much of a threat to Trump that Secret Service had to move him to a bunker, your own personal words were making fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. I have not heard Cenk answer for that one time. The closest it came was, no, I condemn violence on both sides. But your individual words don't show that. Shotgun Breakfast, $10, thank you, says, I've regularly seen Andrew dismiss people making appeals to hypocrisy against him. Isn't that exactly what he's doing to Cenk by saying he's being performative? Well, no, I think what he's doing is taking Cenk's specific words, right? Yes, you could say if Andrew makes appeals to hypocrisy, that in general, sometimes that could be an argument that would be that you wouldn't say is a good argument. But in this case, when your whole argument is, oh my God, January 6th, the worst thing ever, and you, Andrew, I think you like January 6th and freeing all these violent people. And then it's like, but when there was violence on the other side directed at the White House, you personally made fun of these people, made fun of Trump.
So much.
And all you care about is Trump derangement syndrome. All you have is Trump derangement syndrome.
All right, let me try.
TDS.
Wow, I got to say, who was going to drop the first F-bomb? I would have put money on Andrew, so good for Cenk there. Good stuff.
Always on display.
But wait a minute. How can you say? Wait, hold on. I got to say one thing.
Piers, I got to say one thing.
Clear. How could I have? How can you say that I'm cozying up to the right and say I have Trump derangement syndrome?
All right.
Make up your mind. You're a very poor thinker.
We watched the entirety of his entire first term. You were Russia. He's a colluder. He's evil. He's this and that. And he flip-flopped on that position the second it was politically expedient.
Okay. Let me try and...
None of those things are true.
Let me try and move on to... Guys, let's move on to some policy debate. Andrew, let me ask you, do you feel like the woke worm is in reverse as strongly as I'm sensing it is? And it's specifically just the simple statement from Trump that the policy of the United States will be to recognize two genders, male and female. Well, duh. That's always been the case. It's just incredible that the president of the free world effectively has to make this clear to people who'd lost their minds and believe that actually men can be women and women can be men. But do you feel that this has been a big marker in the beginning of the end of the woke mind virus, as Musk calls it?
No, it's not the end of the woke mind virus. You're going to always have to battle this as definitions change because people need to justify their insane and degenerate behavior in society. So they come up with all sorts of nonsense like this. In this particular case, the trans advocacy groups have done more to reverse any type of progress LGBTQ people in the United States have made in the last 30 years because of what they're trying to do with children and the fact that they don't care that you, as a Christian, do not believe at all that a man can become a woman. So yes, this is whiplash on that. There's going to be a lot more whiplash that's going towards that as people reject categorically what these people have been trying to push on us. You can look no further than what just happened at the inauguration. You have a female bishop. That's an impossibility. That is not Christian at all.
So before we get to this, and I'll admit, when it comes to sort of understanding like who could be a bishop and not. I have to claim to be incredibly a novice, so I don't know how much I'll have to add to that portion of the debate. But when it comes to the woke stuff, I think Andrew is absolutely right here. One, it's pervasive. It'll never completely go away. And it's because people want to justify perverse natures. And it's even more than that. They want to justify sort of the priority with wokeness is prioritizing victimhood mindset. That's why I call much of it cultural Marxism. Much like Marxism sought to differentiate people as haves and have-nots economically, the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat. Once they lost, once Solzhenitsyn comes out with the Gulag Archipelago, and it's obvious that Marxism's a disaster, they decided, wait a minute, why can't we just divide people on any amount of categories? And the central theme that runs through all of that is saying that each group, regardless, take any category, race, one group's oppressor, one group's oppressed. Sex, one group's oppressor, one's oppressed. Sexual orientation, religion, ability, wealth, age, height, weight. You could literally separate people in any category and say one group's oppressed, one group's oppressor. And what we have seen, the woke has made the highest currency in our society is victimhood. Victimhood gives you priority to basically be the very bully that you're accusing, the very oppressor that you're accusing the other side. The reason that Cenk is able to write off an attack on the White House on May 30th, which he then made fun of the president, is because deep down what Cenk believes is Trump is immoral, he's oppressor, he's this bad dude, and so therefore it must be that the people that are fighting him aren't as bad. That's how he has no self-reflection. How he can sit there and wax on about, oh my God, the significance of January 6th, and we must condemn all violence. When it's like, Cenk, you personally made fun of Trump for having to be moved to a bunker. No, I condemn all violence. That's the sort of thing that's occurring. And they'll never want to give up that power, ever. So it will always be pervasive. Andrew then goes on to say that the central core of that, where we see the backlash occurring the most, is the trans ideology, particularly when it comes to children. He's absolutely right. That is the turning point. I could do debate after debate with people on critical race theory 4 years ago, and I thought I was doing fantastic in those debates, and it was moving the needle somewhat, but nothing moved the needle like men could be women and they could be in your daughter's bathroom and competing against your daughter in athletics. It's so disgusting. Or, you remember like some of the, insane drag queen story hours. Remember the video that was taken with the drag performers with the neon sign in the background as a male drag performers dancing in front of a child as a stripper, and there's a neon sign in the back that says it's not going to lick itself? That's the sort of shit that people were like, no, too much. And Andrew's absolutely right. They've done more damage to the LGBTQ community and perceived acceptance into society because it's been such an abrupt shift. It was too much too fast, and people are rejecting it. And it's opened the door to rejecting other forms of wokeism, like anti-white wokeism. People don't care anymore. And that's why I think it's, I think it's bad strategy to continue to give interviews to mainstream media outlets. But when you see J.D. Vance go on with this Margaret lady the other day, and he's just like, I just don't care, Margaret. It's fantastic. We're tired of it. I don't care. You call me a racist, you call me a sexist, you call me a transphobe. I don't give a shit in the least bit. I don't care. You have cried wolf so many times that no one takes these accusations seriously.
You're not allowed to have female bishops. That is satanic. That's literally satanic to have a female bishop come up and say anything. You can laugh, but it is. That's
okay,
Satan
well,
speaking. And the reason you're laughing is because it's true.
Well, Cenk, I'll get you to respond. But first of all, let's play the clip of that bishop, because my objection was actually for different reasons. Let's take a look at it.
Yeah, my objection for different reasons as well. I'm not saying Andrew's wrong. I'm sure his reading of the scripture is far more in-depth than my own. But I just have to claim ignorance on this. What the female bishop, my problem with it is, what it represented is that the woke left wants to infiltrate institutions that they know are very important to conservative values. And what institution would you put higher than the church? And so that's why there's been a full-throated effort to infiltrate the church. There are other institutions though that they've done. The military, law enforcement. You even see this when it comes to entertainment. Shows that start off looking like they're representing conservative values, but then gradually and subtly become more and more to progressive values. Because they understand there's power in subverting the institutions that their enemies find near and dear to them. And so, of course, immediately following an election, everyone with any sense whatsoever would say, look, the proper place for a bishop doing a sermon in front of the newly elected administration would be something akin to this. May God watch over you to be astute and moral leaders for the great people of this country, to help lead this country to a successful place where people can become closer to God and have peace. That's it. I'm no bishop. That's the message. But instead, no, we're going right in. Oh, the people that'll be fearful of your administration. I wonder if this bishop was giving a sermon to Joe Biden when he won, when she said, and I think the people that feel they'll be victimized because they'll be attached to January 6th, or that they were demonized with hoaxes like the Jussie Smollett. You think she would have said that? You think the left would have said, oh, yeah, that's just reading from scripture? That's my problem with this. It's naked political partisanship couched in, oh, I'm just reading scripture. That's all. I'm saying be nice to everyone. This is the shit that you see happen with the Democrat Party and the left over and over again. Let me give you another example. Do you remember, I actually was against this, but, you know, anytime that a right-wing politician says something like Elon Musk supposedly did a Nazi salute, boys, the left jump on that, and they demand retractions, apologies, etc. At one point, there was someone that said, a Republican representative said, I don't see a problem with the term white nationalist. Now, maybe that guy's a Nazi. My guess is he's probably someone who believes he's a nationalist. I myself am a nationalist. And he says, what's wrong with being a nationalist when you're white? And didn't understand that the term white nationalist together means something unique. But regardless, I don't know. What happened, though, was Congress capitulated, the Republicans capitulated, and they put out like a little, virtue signaling bill that was like, we condemn hate speech, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you had Ilhan Omar, I think it was Ilhan Omar, who criticized AIPAC and said it's all about the Benjamins, AIPAC, the Israeli lobbying group. Now, is Ilhan Omar an anti-Semite? Maybe, probably. Is saying that AIPAC is all concerned about money anti-Semitism? No. Let me make it as clear as possible. AIPAC has too much influence in our country and lobbies too successfully over and over again, and it's led to disastrous outcomes in many ways for the United States and our citizens. Does that make me an anti-Semite? I'm not. There's some guy in the chat right now talking shit on me because I won't condemn Israel enough. So I get it from both ends. But it's completely fair to say this huge lobbying group representing another country is concerned about money and influence and power. Yeah, that's what lobbying is. You don't get to say that any criticisms of any wealthy Jewish lobbying agencies or Jewish people is necessarily anti-Semitism because there is a trope or there's a stereotype about Jews and money. Ridiculous. It's absurd. But the end result of this was Democrats virtue signaled. So they put out one of these virtue signaling bills. And instead of saying, we condemn Ilhan Omar for her anti-Semitic comments, it said, we condemn all hate speech. And I read through this bill live on my channel. And it said, let's give some examples. It said, we condemn hate speech from white nationalists against Jewish people. And we condemn hate speech against black people. And we condemn hate speech against gay people. And we condemn hate speech against Muslims. And we condemn hate speech against women. And we condemn hate speech against Asians. But you know who they didn't condemn hate speech against? White people, or men, or Christians. I wonder why. So even when their side is being forced to virtue signal, they're still going to do it in ways that push their victimhood narrative. Well, you can't really have hate speech against Christians. You can't really have hate speech against white people. You can't have hate speech against men. How hard would it be if you're going to go that route to just say, we condemn all forms of hate speech? But instead, they'll subtly list every form they could think of except the groups that they don't mind. Same shit here. Yeah, and then they'll say, oh, but we were just condemning all forms of hate speech. That's all we were doing with that statement. Same thing here. Oh, this bishop was just saying be nice to your neighbor. That's all they were saying. No, it's clear that there was a political agenda. And I'm tired of it. Just say it with your chest, man. Yeah, that's what she was doing. Great. Trump's immoral. She should do it. But don't feign ignorance. Oh, I know, no. She's just preaching the word. Garbage.
I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
That is directly antithetical to the promise that Trump ran on that's massively popular in this country. So he basically said, don't deport people because their children will be sad, and you have to welcome refugees from countries around the world. That's not Christianity. That is selective political outrage and pushing a political agenda. It would never have happened in the other direction. Can you imagine Obama or Biden having to sit through a right-wing political advocate / bishop lecturing, I hope that you change your mind about on the promises that you ran for? Mr. Biden, I hope that you'll have compassion for the people that you're trying to steal from in the form of increased taxation. From the people that you locked down and said that they're the reason that the pandemic's coming. That it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. I hope that you'll change your rhetoric in them. Can you imagine that? Also, love Trump's face and J.D. Vance's face there.
So, Cenk, I mean, notwithstanding Andrew's position on the fact there shouldn't be a female bishop, but the fact that she was there on such a big historic moment, delivering a kind of scolding woke lecture with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and their wives sitting there, I just thought it was completely inappropriate. I didn't care who the president was or what the scolding was, but to turn the pulpit into a scolding thing about all America's gay children are going to be running for their lives, I just thought it was completely wrong.
Yeah, Piers, I totally disagree. I loved it, and the reason I loved it is because it's truth to power. And you can say, hey...
It's not truth to power, and this is something that you see all the time. What happens is there will be times the pendulum could swing. Like there were times when you could say criticism of Christians in this country was truth to power. Let me give you an example. As a fan of stand-up comedy, there was a comedian named Lenny Bruce that used to have some very vulgar things to say about Jesus and Mary, and particularly pointed things against the Catholic Church. This is back in like the 50s and 60s. He was routinely arrested for vulgarity and different laws they had surrounding that. That arguably is truth to power, right? Norm Macdonald put this best. Norm used to be one of the judges on this show called Last Comic Standing. And what it was the typical sort of, you have 12 people vying for something and one of them gets eliminated every week. This one happened to focus around comedy. They do this around anything. Chefs, tattoo artists, makeup artists, whatever. This one was about comedians. And there was this segment where it's like Roseanne Barr and Norm Macdonald and some other person are the judges. And this comedian stands up and he's obviously gay based on not just his affectation, but also what he's saying. And he's like, oh, well, Christians want to talk about their books and homosexuality. Well, my books, you know, and this is, by the way, to date this a little, my book's Harry Potter. So before the turf thing, right, with Harry Potter, with J.K. Rowling. And he's like, oh, you know, my book says Sorcerer's Stone chapter 3 says, you know, love, blah, blah, blah. And it's all about like the message of, you know, being gay is not a sin. And the Roseanne's like, I thought that was good and blah, blah, blah. And the crowd's all applauding. And Norm's like, I didn't like this at all. I didn't think it was funny. And he's like, it's not brave either. He's like, it's not brave to come to a LA audience here with people that are going to agree with you and make fun of the group that they're all going to make fun of as well. That's not brave. And he's like, and furthermore, if you knew anything about J.K. Rowling, you would know that Christianity heavily inspired her works in Harry Potter. And it's basically an allegory for Christianity. And Norm's absolutely right. Our culture has been so inundated with Republicans evil, Trump supporters are evil. It's not truth to power for the 1 millionth person to stand up and say that. That's not truth to power. It doesn't matter that Trump's in the room. Truth to power would be you say something that might cost you your career. Like being a conservative in Hollywood. That's truth to power. No, maybe it'll change. Maybe we'll have 20 years of MAGA candidates. And all of a sudden, everyone in Hollywood will be virtue signaling, yay, Trump, yay, I'm a MAGA person. Then you'll have people that'll lose their jobs in Hollywood because they'll stand up and say, no, I don't like Trump. Then you would say, those people are speaking truth to power. But that's not what this lady was doing.
Hey, it's her truth. It's the truth of about half of Americans. It's not necessarily the truth, but at least...
Right, there's the truth, not her truth, his truth.
She's trying to challenge the powerful, and I love that. Look, the reason why a lot of people agree with me is because I challenge the powerful on both sides, on the Democratic side and the Republican side. And that, yeah, that makes the party...
No, he doesn't. For example, someone who was in the progressive sphere, in fact, was a member of the Young Turks, named Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore had one issue that was central to him, and that was Medicare for all, something I don't agree with, by the way. And so, when Democrats won in 2020, he wanted to force a vote for Democrats that ran or virtue signaled on running on promises for Medicare for all. Okay, let's vote on it so we could get on record who's for it and who's against. And Cenk capitulated, as he routinely did. He went along with the powerful and the ruling class in the Democratic Party until he saw the writing on the wall. And I'll admit, Cenk's a little quicker on the uptake, not much, but a little quicker on the uptake than so many other lefties. And so he could start to see that the writing on the wall was changing a little sooner than many of the other Democrats. But for a long time, he went and towed the party line on almost every important issue. Things he ran on about, like actual progressive issues, just like Bernie Sanders, when push came to shove, it was always, well, we got to go along with the Democrats on this.
Partisans get super mad at me. No, Biden's right about everything. No, Trump's right about everything. No, I love that she spoke for half the country, and she said it right to his face. I wish reporters would do that, and I think a lot of the reporters got the message to be softer on Trump. No.
And again, this is another thing that I find hilarious. You show me in the first 2 weeks of Biden's presidency of Cenk saying, why aren't the media being more critical of Biden? Show me. The media, Biden talked to the media less than like any president in modern history. And the media knowingly covered up for his cognitive decline. I'll bet until at least the last year, Cenk wasn't saying shit about it. I'll bet. This is an argument I have with these people all the time. What do their double standards mean? They don't care about what they're claiming to, but they know you do. Yes, I want a media that as best as possible holds truth to power. We don't have that. We have a sycophantic media that goes in the White House press room, and when it's Joe Biden or a Democrat, they're like, oh, you're so great, you're fantastic. And when it's Trump, it's, get this motherfucker! So then we have to listen to people like Cenk run cover for it for 4 years under Biden. I even put out a little YouTube short. You know the clip from Commando when he gets on the beach and he's putting the face paint on and he's loading all the guns? I was like, yeah, here comes the Democrat media ready to, their first White House briefing with Trump. They were on vacation for 4 years. Remember the fact checkers at like the Washington Post? That they'd fact check everything Trump said and then half the fact checks were lies? Well, Trump said that the GDP rose 1.3% last year. That's a lie. While technically true, Trump's implying that his policies led to that. But the experts we talked to said it wasn't because of Trump's policies. But wait a minute, what he said was true. You just disagreed that he should get credit for it. Yeah, and sometimes Trump said things that weren't true. But that's how they did the fact checkers. And then all of a sudden when Biden came in, they announced, we don't have to do the fact checks anymore because Biden won't lie. That's what they said. They took a little vacation. They didn't need to fact check anymore. And now Cenk, I wish that we would have fact checkers and people that are hard. Where were you for 4 years, Cenk? Where were you? I hope that they're not light on Trump. I can't tell you how many times I've debated people with this exact same argument. Like, for example, of the various lawfare against Trump. One of them was the case of obstruction of justice. Oh, Trump ordered boxes to be moved at Mar-a-Lago. He was trying to cover up for his classified documents case. That's obstruction of justice. That's serious. That's a serious crime. Needs to be charged. And then I would be like, well, did they get those boxes in the FBI? Well, eventually they got the boxes. Okay. Unlike with Hillary's team, who had emails subpoenaed and then deleted them after the subpoena, to which many have never been recovered. That's as clear-cut as a case of obstruction of justice you can get. Now, half the people I debate will make excuses. Well, you know, they had to give everyone immunity and, but the other half, they think they're being sly. They're like Cenk. They'll say, oh, I'm not partisan. I call balls and strikes on both sides. Yeah, it sounds like someone on Hillary's team should have been arrested. Yeah. And they think that gets them out of the argument. See, I'm fair. Trump right now in the news right now, he needs to be arrested. And I guess 4 years ago, Hillary should have been arrested. That's how they look at it. And then the question becomes, well, why weren't they? So you're okay with the FBI only going after Trump but not Hillary? To me, that's a far greater crime than anything Trump or Hillary's accused of. The fact that we have a corrupt, biased FBI that's helping their ally on one side, the Hillary team, and going after their opponent. Remember when Chuck Schumer went on national television and told us that the FBI would find 6 ways to Sunday getting back at Trump? Remember when FBI agents were saying that they were going to have an insurance policy to stop a Trump presidency? And yet these people just flippantly say, well, yeah, I guess they should have arrested Hillary. But now's the time. Now, moving forward, we need changes. And it always starts with these people like Cenk with hold Trump accountable. Oh, unconstitutional executive orders. Now that Trump's there, we need to fight back against this. Where were you under Biden? Where were you? Well, forget about all that. Now, moving forward, we need to hold accountable. Literally dozens of people I've debated that make this argument. I've even talked to right-wingers that don't like Trump. That'll say, yeah, you're right. The left wing, yeah, Hillary's team did this. Biden's team did this. FARA violations, mishandling classified documents, obstruction of justice, campaign finance violations. But that's all in the past. So forget about all that. Starting today, right now, moving forward, we need to hold everyone accountable that does this shit. And then what will happen is, when it's people connected to Trump that are accused of something, they'll say, yep, moving forward, we have to hold them accountable. It doesn't matter if that's not how we did things 2 days ago. Going forward, that's how we need to do things. And then, when it's a Democrat in office again, well, all of a sudden, Cenk won't be saying, why is the media throwing softballs at this Democrat? Boy, I wish that bishop would have lectured, whoever, Kamala Harris, if she wins in 2028. I find that ridiculous. That bishop didn't lecture her a week after her inauguration. You think you'll hear that? Of course not. They're not, we're not partisan. We call balls and strikes on both sides. Bullshit. Words are cheap. It's easy to say that now. What did you say when it mattered? What did you say when the entire media was covering up Joe Biden's cognitive decline? Was Cenk out there in 2021, 2022, 2023 lamenting how the media was just running cover for Joe Biden? Maybe. I guess I'd be interested in seeing the clips, but I highly doubt.
No, be harder on the Democrats and the Republicans and the establishment. Be harder on everyone. So do exactly as she did, even though apparently she's Satan.
One more point that I want to make on this. I know I'm grandstanding on this a little. One of my favorite things to bring up was, do you remember when Congressman Gifford got shot in Arizona? Bernie Sanders put out a fundraiser. It turned out that was shot for non-political reasons, by the way. But it was a Democrat that was shot. It was shot by this psychopath that put videos on YouTube. Bad situation. But Bernie Sanders put out fundraiser memos based on that shooting and said, is it even safe to walk down the street in Arizona as a Democrat anymore? Is it even safe? Do you disavow this onesie? Do you disavow? No, that's from today. Forget that. But he put out a memo saying that. So the narrative was, when someone shot a Democrat, it's because of Republican rhetoric. That was the Democrat narrative. Then when a Bernie Sanders supporter shot Republicans at a ball field in Steve Scalise, was the rhetoric was Bernie out there saying, is it even safe to be a Republican in D.C. anymore? My supporters are batshit crazy. My rhetoric led to this. Is that what Bernie said? No. Bernie said, it's time to condemn all violence. Everybody needs to tone down the rhetoric. That's what Cenk's doing right here. Oh, the bishops and everybody needs to go as hard as Trump as possible. By the way, go hard against everyone. But then when it's his side in power, then it's different. Then he ain't calling for people to go hard. Absolute transparent bullshit.
Brother, look, how can I talk to you, man, when you say such ludicrous things? Do you know that like 95% of Americans, when you say that she's satanic because she's a woman bishop, think that you're nuts? Do you at least understand and acknowledge that?
First of all, they don't.
I think that number's too high. There are certainly a portion of people, Cenk's right about this, that maybe would have been persuaded by some of Andrew's arguments earlier when they hears them say she's satanic because she's a woman bishop, that are going to be turned off by that. Now, the counter argument to Andrew would be like, but if it's right, it's right. Which, again, I'm not speaking on it. For me, it's not an argument I would have went with.
You don't understand anything about the Bible, apostolic succession, church history. You don't know anything about these things, Cenk. You have no idea what you're talking about. First of all, she wasn't speaking truth to power. She was speaking subversiveness to goodness. And that's what's actually going on, and that's what Democrats are great at doing. Sure. Yes, it is completely satanic to have inversion. Inversion is when you take what is considered the Christ head, in this case a bishop, and invert it to a woman. That's what you people are great at doing, is inversion. If you looked at the 2,000 years of Christian history, you would understand this, especially church history, going all the way back to the time of Christ and apostolic succession. People, you can, but the truth is that people get all of their ethics and goodness in this nation from biblical ethics and Christian ethics, not from Cenk Uygur thinks it's neat that a chick can do this. It's like, no, that's not part of our ethical standard there. That's not what it is. We don't have an ethical standard based around.
So, again, I think Andrew's making a compelling argument here. Our church says, no, this isn't the case. We can go through the 2,000-year history. And the idea of inversion, I think, is very important. Now, do I understand? I think Cenk's right, that this optically is going to be an area where Cenk could get some sort of victory, because most people aren't going to understand or look at things in the way that Andrew is. And so it can be an area that you can attack him and say, this makes you look crazy. Because most people would think, look, although we believe in predefined gender roles, we do think that there should be exceptions carved out where if a woman's capable, meritocracy-wise, of being a construction worker, she should be allowed. And if a man's a very good stay-at-home father, he should be allowed to do that. They would probably tend to then imply that when it goes to religion. They probably look at it this way. Well, whoever could give the best message from the Word of God, who gives a shit if they're white, if they're black, if they're man, if they're woman, if they're straight, or they're gay? But Andrew's making an argument, but that's not what our text says. Our text says that the Word of God will come through specific channels, and that you'll know that it's an inversion when it's not coming through these channels. Now, I don't know. Maybe there could be someone that would push back on whether or not there could be a female bishop. I have to claim ignorance. But the argument he's making is one that makes sense from his perspective. Now, I think Cenk's going to be able to push back optically in a way that most people, I don't think it's 95%, but I think that most people will find persuasive. It seems hyperbolic to say this chick's a woman and a bishop, therefore she's satanic.
Wait, your version of the woke Bible. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When you call a respected bishop a chick and satanic.
Respected by who?
It's funny that you don't see that you lose such a giant percentage of the country. And so, like, guys like this make it nearly impossible for...
It's a funny line by Andrew there, but Cenk's right. And it's an argument I've had with Andrew on several things in the past. For example, 2 days before the election, I'm on Jake Rattlesnake's show, and Andrew comes on to debate with me about whether or not we should repeal the 19th Amendment and women's right to vote. Now, even if you think that would be something good, you have to understand the majority of the country is going to be against that. And so to make this a central argument 2 days before an election, where Andrew would agree he wanted Trump to win, seems like a huge mistake. And optically, it's devastating. Similarly, I think Cenk's making a good point here. Andrew is making an argument that is overreaching to what the majority of Americans would think, and that optically looks bad. Do you understand that? And Andrew comes back with a pithy response of, I'm speaking truth to power, which there's some truth to that. I mean, I'm sure if I nailed Andrew down on this, his argument would probably be something, I don't give a shit if it's popular or not. If it's wrong, it's wrong. So optically, I think Cenk's winning this portion of the debate, though it's, for me, it's not an important portion of the debate, but that's my own bias. But I think optically he's winning, but he's not arguing on the specifics. And this goes to sort of the argumentative styles that I said that you would be likely to see. Again, I only watched like 2-3 minute clips of this debate, and I predicted that this is sort of how it would go. Andrew's like a wolf that's going to hyper-focus on specific issues. And Cenk's more of like concerned about the optical battle. By the way, I'm not saying one style debate's right or wrong. In this particular instance, I think Cenk's right, that the majority of people watching, even many people that would have agreed with Andrew on the first section of January 6th, would be like, dude, this guy's going too far. This sounds a little unhinged. Yeah, Cenk isn't doing a great job, but... Huge part of the country to ever vote for Republicans. Because if you vote for a Republican, you're going to get these ghouls and goblins. And they're going to say, oh, yeah, chicks shouldn't be on bishops, man. It's inversion, dude. It's satanic. You sound insane. You sound, to me, honestly, you sound like you belong in a mental asylum. So, again, Cenk not making the argument as good as he can. To me, the part that I think most people would take umbrage with what Andrew said wasn't that a chick can't be a bishop. There might be a lot of people that question that. But the fact that that's satanic. And they might say, that seems too far. So, like, for example, if my wife decides that she wants to be a preacher and somehow get promoted to bishop, I don't think she would be doing it because she's seeking to intentionally invert the word of Christ and that she wants to usher in sort of secularism or Satanism. Even if Andrew would disagree that she could be a bishop, I think that would be, well, she's wrong. Not that she's intentionally satanic. Now, maybe the argument is, Andrew's saying, well, it would be satanic even if it wasn't intentional. That might be I don't know, I'm just speculating, that might be the argument he would say there. But most people are going to say, that's harsh. You called her satanic. So I think that Cenk's would be more strategic to focus on that portion of it rather than the portion of can a woman be a bishop, particularly when, not that Andrew's gone in depth into exactly why they can't, but he's at least said, look, we have 2,000 years of history that explains why not, and Cenk's not even touching it. He's just like, well, people think that sounds batshit crazy, which he's right, but it's not touching the specifics of it. But again, does optically that matter? Probably not, because most people are going to make their own judgment.
When you call people satanic, what the hell does that
there we
even
go.
mean?
Always gonna
just because she's a woman, just because she's a woman, she's satanic in that role. See, that's exactly why I'm a populist, but I can't be populist, right? When guys like this
speaking
say
truth
such
to power,
insane things
Cenk.
and
What's your
drive
problem? You're
hatred,
huge. I'm
drive
speaking truth to power.
hatred. You're right, I am
You're
power,
huge.
so keep going.
Remember how you
it
said,
turns out.
I'm massive, I'm huge, I have this massive body?
That's funny. That's a funny line by Cenk there. You're right, I am power. That's funny. But yeah, he then brought up the satanic stuff. Okay.
So I'm here saying, speaking truth to power. You should be all about that. You should be loving the fact that I'm telling you something now, which is true. It is an
You're speaking
inversion.
gibberish to power.
It is
is Beelzebub in the room with us right now?
It is an inversion.
Is Beelzebub
I want
and
to change. I
Shaitan
want to change
in the
to
room?
some-
Now, Piers is going to be sort of that audience. If you could interview Piers, I'm sure he would say, yeah, I think Andrew's kind of batshit crazy for saying that. That's why Piers is like, yeah, I'm not even touching that. But don't you think that this was sort of being political? That's how he redirects the framing towards Cenk. And you can see here that he's like, eh. And I understand it because that's partially how I feel. My recommendation for Andrew for this argument would be more to focus on the politics of it rather than you can't have a female bishop and she's satanic. But Andrew isn't interested in just winning an optic battle. I'm sure he wants to win the optics of it. But he's also interested as someone who is outspoken and has strong beliefs. It doesn't matter if 99% of the people would think that his religious beliefs are wrong. He's not going to shy away from it if he thinks that's the most important argument. And so at least that's commendable. And in that sense, he is holding truth to power in that a lot of people would say, this isn't my cup of tea. This isn't how I would argue. Or I think that this sounds a little bit unhinged. But he's like, I believe it. I think Andrew could make his point better here by citing scripture or something specifically that says why women can't be bishops, and then focus more on this idea of how inversion leads to sort of Satanism, right? Because I think that optically what happens is people hear that it's satanic and they're like, oh, this bishop's drinking blood out of skulls. And that's, I don't think, what he's saying at all. He's saying that inverting Christianity benefits Satan. And so there are little benign things all the time that would be satanic in his estimation that aren't drinking blood out of skulls, but it's helping Satan. And that's why he would consider it satanic. So I don't think that either side's doing particularly great on this portion of the debate. But in fairness to both of them, it's a very deep subject to cover in like 4 minutes.
I'm
I'm sorry. You hate Christianity?
Time
You
out.
hate Christian ethics, Cenk?
Time out. Let's move Christian ethics to another
I
debate.
don't hate Christianity.
I want to ask you about
I
Nazis.
hate your radical
You sure
lunatic
sound like you
version of
do.
Chaps, I want to
That's not radical.
Chaps, time out. I want to calm the temperature by turning to Nazi salutes.
It's a funny line there. Calm it down by talking
You said about Elon Musk. Let's take a look at what he did, just to remind everyone who may not have seen it.
This one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen.
Like, I hate to be this guy as a balding man, but, I mean, as
What
the
he
world's
did,
wealthiest
just
man,
remind everyone
couldn't
who
this guy
may
get a
not
better
see it.
haircut?
This one really mattered. And I just want to say
Look at this tuft of hair standing up in the back. I mean, again, Elon's got better hair than my bald ass here, but, I mean, come on. Maybe he's just having fun partying and... Anyways, not really the topic. Just, I never noticed that hair standing up in the back there.
thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
Now, Cenk, you said it was the most obvious.
Now, they did cut out the line there that said, "My heart goes out to you," which is sort of explaining his hand over his heart and throwing it out to people. But, yeah, I guess you don't have to take care of your hair when you're the wealthiest man in the world. All right. So, I think Piers would have behooved him to play the extra 5 seconds there, but whatever.
Nazi salute you'd ever seen, which I think
didn't
Hitler
say
might be a
that,
bit
did you?
surprised about, but you don't
didn't
actually
really say
believe.
that, did you, Cenk? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry.
Cenk, just to be clear, you don't actually think he's a Nazi, do you? So how can you make a Nazi salute if you're not actually a Nazi and in fact absolutely hate everything they stand for? That's not a Nazi salute. It's a awkward thing that he did to say "my heart to you" that then gets deliberately misinterpreted as a Nazi salute by people who keep wanting to call.
So I will quit, like, personally, my moderation style is different than Piers, though when I'm moderating stuff, it's nowhere near to the audience that Piers is moderating, obviously. And Piers is trying to put on a show that's entertaining. But notice how Piers will, like, throw his own opinion in when asking the question. That's clearly not a Nazi salute. The way I would ask it would just be, is that a Nazi salute? Do you think he's an actual Nazi? So just an interesting stylistic choice as a moderator there.
Call everyone on the right a Nazi.
No. So Elon Musk is trolling. So this is a classic right-wing maneuver. It's to get attention, and he knows that if he does a Nazi salute, but he says, "Oh, buddy, I touched my heart, and I can't believe they're calling me a Nazi. I'm the victim. The left wing is coming after me just because I did the most obvious Nazi salute of all time." Now,
So let me start by saying this. Cenk's defense of calling this a Nazi salute is actually the most defensible position. The idea that saying that Elon's a secret Nazi is nonsensical and bullshit. So the best argument you could make for why this is a Nazi salute is that it was ironic, that it was a troll. I still think this isn't the case. It seems to me that he's sort of overwhelmed with emotion in the moment. He makes that motion, and then he makes it a second time and probably doesn't realize sort of how that could be interpreted until after the moment. The idea that, like, what would Cenk's argument be here? That this was pre-planned? Or that in the moment he came up with, like, oh shit, you know what I'll do? Throw out a Nazi salute because I know that this will intentionally change the conversation to me being a Nazi. It's funny, they make fun of people for saying that people like Trump play 4D chess, but I guess that's what Cenk's saying here, that Elon is so smart that he trollishly did a Nazi salute even though he's not a Nazi so that he knew the Democrats would take the bait. That's the argument. It just seems nonsensical. It seems that the clearest explanation is clearly he's not a Nazi. This was probably just done in an act of emotion at the time from an awkward guy. And that the media hyper-focusing that this somehow means that Elon's a Nazi are batshit crazy and haven't learned anything from the 2024 election.
Now, the left is angry at me because I'm not calling him a Nazi. I think he's trolling. I think he's doing it for attention. And he does his plausible deniability. It's the oldest trick in the book coming from the right wing. In fact, when you get upset at the right wing, they usually go, he's just trolling, right? So that's what happened there. That wasn't subtle. And again, I have credibility here.
But what's the benefit to Elon for doing this? Like, if I hate Nazis, I'm not going to troll and make people think that I'm a Nazi. And Cenk says this is the oldest trick in the book. You remember when the Tiki Torch people showed up at, who was it? The Virginia governor? Remember that? And then it turned out they were Democratic operatives. So I don't understand. I still don't understand what Cenk's is for the lulz. Is that what it is? Or this was just some troll, not for the laughs, but to intentionally switch narratives?
Because when they accused so many people of doing this, I said no. When Laura Ingraham was at the RNC and she raised her arm, and they're like, that's a Nazi salute. I'm not, that's not a Nazi salute. She just raised her arm. Everybody raises their arm. He did that so crisp, so sharp, exactly like the way that they did in the Third Reich. That's not an accident. He's a smart guy. He's doing it to get us to do this segment and for the inauguration to all be about Elon Musk. He's swallowing up all the attention.
I think that is the biggest load of cobblers I've ever heard in my life. But Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, so it is.
Okay.
So
oh my God! No! Don't criticize when it's so freaking obvious. And what if he put a Nazi? He put a swastika on his forehead. You guys would be like, no.
No, they wouldn't. If he put a swastika on his forehead, we would say that's clearly a swastika. If he makes a motion that literally could look like someone going like this and throwing their heart out, to jump to the fact that, but that looks like a Nazi salute. Oh, man, it looks more like a Nazi salute than someone that would just go, yeah. But that doesn't mean that it's an obvious Nazi salute, but he's not really a Nazi and he was just doing it for trolling, but I haven't given an incentive why he would do it. And that's the equivalent of if he literally came out with a swastika on his forehead. It's a joke. He hasn't given any incentive why Elon would do this.
No. It's not what it appears. It's not what it appears.
Calm down. Cenk, calm down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't interrupt you.
Andrea, go ahead.
By the way, it's great to have the old Cenk back, by the way, just for the record.
Yeah, I didn't interrupt you, Snake. Just calm down for a second. Let me respond very quickly.
Andrea.
Okay, so we have tons of evidence that Elon Musk isn't a Nazi. Kanye West, I don't know if you remember this,
I didn't call him a Nazi.
He ran for political office. When he released a swastika, it wasn't even a swastika, it's just something that looked like one. Musk banned him for it. Musk just went through and did a massive purge. He just went through and did a massive purge of all sorts of people who were considered Nazis or that the left had been calling Nazis on Twitter. It's a big thing right now. All the evidence points to the fact not only is he not a Nazi, but there's no good incentive for him to even do this. What's the incentive? You say, well, it's a dog whistle. He's trolling. He's just funning this and that. No, this is very common, by the way, for people to make this hand gesture. I have it from AOC. I have it from Clinton. I have it from
Germany.
All of these various people.
In the 1930s.
And the thing is, yeah, I have it from all of the Democrats. You can draw side-by-side comparisons. People have been showing you them nonstop. You just don't care. You don't care because you want it to be some trolling Nazi thing when it clearly isn't.
Then why did I defend all the other right-wingers when they raised their arms like that? Then why did I defend all the other right-wingers when they raised their arms like that?
Because the same reason you defend left-wingers
that
when
was
they do.
the clearest Nazi salute. And by the way, I literally said, even if he put a swastika on his head, you guys would find an excuse for it. And then, hold on, and then you said about Kanye, when he put a swastika on his head, it wasn't really a Nazi symbol. I mean, you proved my point over and over again. So it's a delight debating
I didn't say it wasn't a Nazi symbol. I said a swastika. I said it wasn't an actual swastika, but it looked enough like one.
That is what he said. He said it wasn't an actual swastika. And again, Cenk doesn't, I'm open to hearing Cenk's side of this argument, but Andrew makes if this is the argument, if you're just watching and you have no clue what's going on, you're not really invested in these characters, you're watching this 30 years from now in some college course and you don't know much about Elon Musk or Donald Trump or, whatever, or any of the characters on screen here now, right? And you're just like, okay, so this one guy's saying that was a Nazi salute, but the dude's not a Nazi, he's just trolling. And the other guy's like, okay, but what would his incentive be to do that? He clearly doesn't like Nazis. And then Cenk's like, yeah, he's not a Nazi. You don't like Nazis. But that's not an answer to what the incentive would be. What's the incentive? Cenk hasn't made that argument. That seems to be incumbent on the person saying, this was clearly a Nazi salute, but he's not a Nazi. He did it to troll because... But he never gets to the because.
that he banned
okay,
it.
so
I didn't say
there you
anything
go
about
again. I mean,
not
it's a
Nazi,
swastika, but
Nazi
not really,
symbol.
but not really, because, okay. So, look, even
Yeah,
Nick
symbols
Fuentes,
actually
an
look
avowed
like actual
neo-Nazi
symbols because they're
today,
actual
said
symbols.
It's an absolute Nazi salute. Yeah, so look, guys.
No, he didn't
you
say
guys
that.
are
You just made it
fighting
up.
against the ghost. Nick
I mean,
Fuentes did say that.
Cenk,
He
as he did
didn't
it,
make a Nazi.
as he did it,
make a
Cenk, he
Nazi
literally
salute.
says, "From my heart to you," or whatever the words were, right?
Yeah.
He literally tells
Touches
you
his
what
heart.
he's doing.
Yeah, that's
From
the
my heart
plausible
to you.
deniability. Of course.
Nobody,
Of course. Do you
nobody
think, Piers,
actually
Piers,
believes.
Piers,
Hang on, Cenk.
Piers,
No, Cenk, hang on.
you're a
Cenk,
sophisticated
nobody
media
actually,
person.
including
Do you
you, by the
really
way.
think he would have said, "This is for the Third Reich"? No, of course he's going to have
He would
plausible
if he was a
deniability
Nazi.
and make up an excuse. You
Yeah.
know that.
If he was a Nazi, he'd say, "Heil Hitler, this is for you, the Third Reich."
Now, I can't wait for Piers, someone to check that out. Piers Morgan said, "Heil Hitler." Now Rob did too. Oh, shit.
My love to you, yes, because he would be an actual Nazi.
you.
Instead,
Well,
he's a
first
guy
of
who
all,
literally
Piers,
a few
you're
months
fighting a
ago
ghost.
went to Jerusalem. He went to Jerusalem. He
Yeah,
went to the,
but again,
and then he went down to the.
But
he went
Piers,
down to the
two things.
kibbutz,
Number
which
one,
was
you're fighting a
annihilated
ghost.
on
I
October
didn't
the
say he
7th.
was a Nazi.
He literally went.
I didn't
to the
say he was a
scene
Nazi.
Of the
You
massacre
keep going back to
of
he's
Jewish
not a Nazi.
people on
It's
I'm
October
saying
the
he's
7th.
doing it for
It's inferred.
attention, and you know that, Piers. As a guy who loves attention,
It's not true.
you know he's doing
I
it for the
don't.
attention.
I don't
so
know that,
stop making
'cause
an
it
argument.
didn't happen.
Debate.
Again, he hasn't. So I guess that's his incentive because he likes attention. That's it. But I mean, again, I would have liked to have seen Andrew push back more. Was this pre-planned? Do you think he came up with it on the spot? What's the argument here? You think he was writing his speech down, was like, here's the high points of the speech I'm going to make. Oh, and then I'm going to use the line from "My heart goes out to you" and then do a Nazi salute? It's absurd. It's the same old argument. And by the way, I don't know if this point will be brought up. Who do you think's ideology would be more like, forget about symbolism, who do you think's ideology, based on their status of what they think about the nation of Israel, would be more likely to be smeared as being Nazi? Elon Musk or Cenk's? Dave, I don't disagree with you. I think that I personally don't prefer moderators jumping in like this. My personal opinion. So I agree. It is, at this point, tantamount to a 2-on-1 situation. So there's awfully a lot of people that would say, "Oh, Cenk talks about Israel committing genocide in Palestine. That's Nazi shit. That's anti-Semitism." And so does that mean if someone wants to parse through gestures that Cenk's made in the past, do we have to take those credibly? If anyone should know about smearing someone as being a Nazi or trolling to being a Nazi, you'd think it'd be people like Cenk that presumably he's not a Nazi. I'm not calling him a Nazi. But then been smeared as akin to one because of his political beliefs.
Debating an argument that I didn't even make.
There is absolutely no way in the world Elon Musk deliberately did that to get attention as a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah.
The whole idea of that is fanciful, delusional, and deliberately,
No, not as a Nazi
deliberately
sympathizer,
manipulative
Piers.
nonsense.
As a person who goes, me, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's trolling. Do you not understand the concept of trolling?
I do.
So you
I'm
do
very good at it
outrageous
myself.
things with plausible deniability.
But you don't do outrageous things that'll get you smeared as a Nazi when you have access to government power like this. You might do outrageous shit like, "Oh, I'm the best, Diablo 3 player in the world."
So that you could then come and go, "Oh my God, I got all the attention, plus I'm the victim because they're misinterpreting me."
Yeah, because when
It's
you're selling,
Trump's
okay,
great
so you
argument,
really
Cenk.
learn
So
that
here's-
trick and
here's
use
hang on,
that
Cenk's
trick.
argument.
So
just to be
you're
clear,
having
hang
a
on.
nonsense debate about
Cenk,
whether he's a Nazi.
just to be clear,
I'm telling you that he did it for attention.
I hear you, but just to be clear, you really think that what he thought would be a good move as he's celebrating Donald Trump's historic second presidency starting, that what Donald Trump would want on the front pages the next day was not a picture of him as the new president, but a picture of Elon Musk doing what you say was a Nazi salute. You think he literally gamed that deliberately to troll people. What part of your brain
So,
thinks
Piers,
that
let me
is
ask you a
even
question
feasible
back.
from a guy who literally lands space rockets in cradles? He's got one of the biggest brains in the world. He was not deliberately trolling people as if he's a Nazi. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, Piers, let me ask you a question back. If you were giving a speech in the inauguration or in the parliament or anywhere, and somebody told you, hey, go say from my heart and do this exact thing where you even almost snap your boots. You know, he just snapped that salute, right?
He won't do it again.
Would you really do it? And I want you to do it right now
I told him,
if you say you would do it.
I told him, I didn't tell him, but I tweeted, and 10 million people have viewed my post on X, so he'll have seen it. I just said it was very ill-advised of him to do.
Again, it's the sort of thing. Not everyone is thinking about Nazis 24/7. He didn't even think of it. Hey, what's up, Grid? Thanks for the raid, man. It's absurd. It's not like he made the country. People do shit in the heat of the moment, when they're excited, when they're celebrating. What's this mean? Many people could say that's an obvious black power salute. You know how many times I've seen athletes do that in the heat of the moment? Yes! They won. Cenk's making it out to seem like every gesture that Elon made, every word was specifically planned out. And would you specifically plan that out, Piers? If you were giving a speech like this? Well, no. Let me give you an example. I might not write a speech if I was one of the people that I felt was instrumental in getting Donald Trump to win. And many of the people were saying that around the world. And Trump wins. And I'm truly excited for that. I wouldn't write a speech for the inauguration that said, fucking A, we kicked their ass. But after I gave my speech and was celebrating, I might say that. It wasn't planned. I say and do shit all the time that's not planned that you might look back later and go, nah, I can see how that would be misinterpreted. Yeah, he's basically an autistic guy who is excited. I can't wait. The game that they're playing here, I mean, again, Cenk provides no incentive other than, well, he's a troll. He's just doing that. He wants to steal the limelight and make the narrative about him doing a Nazi salute so that he can say he's a victim. It makes no sense. What's more plausible? That this guy just did a gesture in the heat of the moment that also happens to look like what the traditional Roman salute was for the Nazis? Or that he pre-planned it out so that he could be a troll? As if he didn't already have a lot of attention on himself.
That move, absolutely.
There you go. So you think it did look like a Nazi salute.
But anyone who genuinely believes he was doing it to replicate a Nazi salute is talking complete bullshit. Andrew.
Yeah, and to just respond
No,
very
but
briefly.
Piers,
I want to bring Andrew in now. Let me bring Andrew in.
If it didn't look like a Nazi salute, why was it ill-advised?
No one's saying it didn't look like a Nazi salute. They're saying it wasn't a Nazi salute. This looks like a peace sign, but it might not be. I might be in the basketball court going, shoot the two. But does it look like a peace sign? Yeah. No one's saying it didn't look like a Nazi salute. The question is, was it one? No.
If it didn't look like a Nazi salute, why was it ill-advised?
Andrew, he was ill-advised to do it, and I'm sure he'll now realize that. It was an ill-advised act.
Okay, good.
So here's the thing too. This is something that's off the cuff. Cenk's entire argument here is it's trolling. Believe me. That's it.
Yeah.
No evidence, no anything.
None.
All evidence to the contrary.
You don't have evidence
doesn't even
either.
claim he's a.
You don't know what's in his
he's a
head.
Nazi. It's not my claim. You, the claimer. You bring the evidence. You, the claimer, bring the evidence. Oh, it was trolling? I have no evidence.
The
Believe
evidence
me, though.
is in the
Great
video
argument.
where he does a Cenk Uygur
Oh, that's
salute.
the evidence.
And you're saying,
didn't
no,
do a
it's
Cenk
Uygur.
his mind.
Now it's a Cenk Uygur.
You read his mind, and he meant really well by it.
You are
You're
the one claiming you
that
read
has
his mind. You're the one claiming you read his
No,
mind, and it's a troll, bro.
I'm
Believe
telling
me.
you what we all saw with our own eyes and ears.
Again, that absolutely spot on from Andrew here. Great point. If you're making the claim that this guy did something morally heinous, in this case, made a Nazi salute with the intent of people viewing it as a Nazi salute so that he could troll them, then you have to be the one to provide evidence, and he hasn't. And Cenk's counter-argument is, oh, so you're saying you knew it was in his mind and it was an obvious Nazi salute. But that's their entire argument. It wasn't. And why does it matter? Thanks, by the way, for the members. I really appreciate it. Mr. Belay. And I will get to all the super chats at the end, I promise. What is, like, Cenk's big argument here is basically running defense for all the people that are claiming that, making this a huge story. Because if they're like, he's not really a Nazi, then what's the story? This guy's joking around. Okay? Bellis says, Rob Knorr, you're sounding like a dumb fuck right now. Care to come in and debate me when I'm done with the review here? You can show what dumb fuck I want. My heart goes out to you. There, I did it. Now what? Now what, Bellis? I just did it. Now what? Now what, Bellis in chat? Now what? What's your argument now? I just did it. All caps. Do the salute right now on stream if it's not a Nazi salute. There, I just did. And? My son hurt his finger today. He said, Dad, I hurt my fingernail. He clearly flipped you off. No, he didn't. He doesn't even know what that is. Then do it right now on stream. Yeah, this is what he did. He said he hurt his fingernail. Where you at, Bellis? Oh, someone timed him out. Well, that would be a good reason. I didn't time anyone out. Just so you know. I like AOD, though. He's a mod. He can do what he wants. All right, let's move on. We got 9 more minutes. I know my analysis is lengthy.
In fact, Piers admits that it looks like a Nazi salute. Piers is on my side on that.
No.
You're
I
saying,
said it was
even
an
though it looks like a
ill-advised...
Nazi salute,
No.
I read his mind,
Let me be
and
clear.
he meant nothing but warm
That's what you're saying.
It was an
fire, they're
ill-advised.
rainbows.
It was an ill-advised
No evidence.
movement of his arm because obviously the kickback has shown that. However,
Great argument, by the way.
He did
Believe
not
me,
say,
bro.
as you're
Believe me,
saying,
bro.
as you're saying, Cenk, he did not say Sieg Heil because that would have made him a Nazi saluting Adolf Hitler. He said, from my heart to you. Rather less, I would say, contentious than Sieg
He
Heil,
snapped his
which is
goose,
what you
brother.
want people to think he was
snapped
doing.
that salute.
All
Okay,
right,
Piers,
let's
let me
change
ask you
subject.
one more question.
Let's change subject.
If Elon...
So, again, like, I don't know why it's hard for either Piers or Andrew. I would just say, of course people could say it looks like a Nazi salute. And? Looking like something and then claiming that it is. There could be all, like, you have to understand. There are all sorts of gestures that could look like other gestures, but that doesn't mean that's what they are. It's only that thing if that was the intent. Did I flip you off? Maybe. Maybe I'm from Zimbabwe, and we have no idea what that gesture means. And I was just trying to show you, like, look, I hurt my finger. Doesn't that look like I flipped you off? Yeah, but did I? The intent matters in saying if it is that thing or if it's just something that looks like it. People do things that look like things all the time with gestures. And why is Cenk so passionate about this if he truly believes that Elon's not a Nazi?
Thought, oh my God, that's so ill-advised. I feel so bad about that. If somebody was saying that I did something Nazi, I said, well, my God, I feel bad about that if it was ill-advised. Why wouldn't he just say, oh, of course I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry if people perceive it that way. But he never does that.
What does he need to apologize for? He didn't do anything wrong.
If Elon Musk does it again...
But Piers thinks he did something wrong.
No, Cenk, if he does it again in public that way, then he will be trolling people.
Right. And the reason he didn't apologize is because when you apologize to these woke people, it is never enough. They'll always go further and further. If he would say, I'm sorry, I could see how that would have been misinterpreted as a Nazi salute. Then people like Cenk will say, see, of course, he knew it was a Nazi salute, of course. I didn't time you out. One of my mods did. I don't sound like a dumb fuck. You could call on a debate. I did the salute you were claiming I didn't have the balls to do. Now what's your claim now, Bellis? What's your claim? Thanks, Grid. I appreciate it. Oh, you said, do it. If it's not a Nazi salute, do it. So I did it, and now you're like, oh, he did a Nazi salute. So what was your argument? You were clearly implying I wouldn't do it because it's an obvious Nazi salute. Then I did it, and now you're like, well, you did an obvious Nazi salute. What an argument. My syllogism is, that was a Nazi salute, A. B, and I know you know it because you won't do it on stream. C, that proves it's a Nazi salute. So I do it on stream, and you're like, well, you just did a Nazi salute. Having a tough time there, Bellis, huh? It's all right. You're welcome here. I didn't do a Nazi salute on stream to try to win an argument. I did a salute that people will say looked like a Nazi salute that was saying, my heart goes out to you. Thanks. I appreciate it, Pine Creek. I got owned. This dude owned me, man. He did it. He owned me. You're a coward who won't call in a debate despite the fact you're saying that I'm dumb, who claimed that I wouldn't do that salute because it was an obvious Nazi salute, which I clearly did it because it's not a Nazi salute. And so once you've been proven wrong, you're like, oh, that was a Nazi salute. You got owned. Calling in to debate, Bellis? No, I didn't think so. Coward. And by the way, I'm more than happy that the Democrats are running with this strategy. They have no argument. And so they're doubling down on the tentpole hoax of Trump said Nazis are good people. Everyone's a Nazi that we disagree with. That's it. That's all they have. And you can see it from the intellectual giants here of people like Bellis. You don't call men on the phone. You're not a homosexual who does Nazi salutes on stream. Nope, you're just a coward. All right, let's go on with the debate.
Because now he knows how it looked.
Okay, deal.
And I don't believe he meant that in a million years. The last thing Elon Musk, having literally been...
He may troll it now, afterwards, because he'd say you all called me Nazis, but it was a thing in the heat of the moment.
...to the kibbutz, where Jewish people were massacred on October the 7th, literally a few months ago. The idea that he would now want people to think he's a
After
Nazi
being pressured to
is
do it.
ridiculous. Anyway, I want to change the subject quickly. We're running out of time. Andrew, many people are saying that what Elon Musk and Trump and RFK, Joe Rogan, all these guys, that there's a kind of new broligarchy that is ruling America. And that's why so many young men in particular, black, white, Muslim, Jew, whatever, all came out and voted for Trump in bigger numbers. Do you feel is it a real thing, the broligarchy?
Yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, yes, men like things which are masculine, and they're moving back towards masculinity from the social ineptness of the left, saying, oh no, all these feminine virtues are great. Men are not happy with that. They're not thrilled about it one bit. Absolutely. I would say that there's a ton of people now who are saying, look, we need to have some type of common sense. We can't have trans kids running around. We can't have this stuff in our schools. We can't have these indoctrination programs everywhere. So it's trying to yield back to common sense. Remember what Trump said in the inauguration. He says, now it is time to go back to common sense. He said that. He also said it's Liberation Day because we're going back to common sense. So yes, I wouldn't say it's an oligarchy or a broligarchy, right? I would just say it's a whole bunch of like-minded men who are all saying no at the same time. There's not only nothing wrong with that, but it's been needed for a long time.
Yeah, and Cenk, I agree. I do think that...
Yeah, I agree with that. I think men of all these different persuasions are starting to understand that this sort of wokeism, they sort of talked about this in the woke, but I think it is a return to common sense, and men do want things that are masculine. I think they've been shamed for years, and the same is true of these other groups that have been deemed oppressors. White people are tired of being shamed that they're these horrible racists. Christians are trying to be shamed by people saying, oh, what would Jesus do, that don't care at all about what Jesus would do. People are waking up to the game. These people don't have arguments. They just smear you and attack you. And so I agree. I think people are waking up. We'll see what Cenk says here.
Men, for a number of years now, since the Me Too and Time's Up movements, quite rightly held a lot of predatory men to proper account. No problem with that whatsoever. But the pendulum swung so far the other way that every man started feeling like they were predatory until they could prove otherwise. And a lot of young men in particular gravitated to people like Andrew Tate and these kind of more contentious characters because they were crying out for someone to tell them what they should be like as a man. And what it feels to me now is, as Andrew just said, is that you're getting a return perhaps of the pendulum to a place where it's okay to be masculine. It's okay to slightly beat your chest and say, I'm proud to be a man. And I think it is. I think that's been long overdue to have that pendulum come back to where not all masculinity is toxic.
On this one, I completely agree with you, Piers. I think the pendulum swings all the time, and every time it swings, I'm against it when it gets to the extremes, and I get hit by both sides. But yeah, I think that people went too far. Every form of masculinity was being called toxic masculinity, but that's not right. There's things that are masculine that are perfectly great. And, you know, I've said this on many shows. It's kind of a hilarious thing to say, but I'm proud of being a man. I love being a man. And so if we are really progressive and we're on the left, we have to be accepting of everyone and exactly as they are. So if someone's very feminine, great. Someone's very masculine, great. So they're somewhere in the middle. They viewed masculinity and femininity differently, great, no problem. We believe in freedom. We believe in these principles. So I think the pendulum did swing too far. This is definitely the country reacting back. But I do want to say one thing.
So first, let me say here, I don't disagree with almost anything he said here. I do think that there's room to say that things push back too much. I don't like some of the red pill content that's like, don't get married, getting married for cucks, go out and bang as many women as you can, here's how you do it. That's not my message. My message is have a family. Find a woman that's as compatible with you as possible. And it takes sacrifices on your part as well. And you should find a woman that's willing to sacrifice for you. That to me is a better way of celebrating masculinity and celebrating men than just like, just go out and bang as many chicks as you can and blah, blah, blah. Now, having admitted, I don't watch a lot of the red pill content, but I do think Chick makes a point about, he criticized if the pendulum swings back too far. But even you might say it's cynical. Was Cenk saying this stuff when it mattered 4 years ago? Probably not. You know, now that it's obvious, I think that same Quinnipiac poll that said Democrats' approval's at like 30-something% had men under the age of 45, their approval rating of the Democratic Party something like 21 or 22%. That's abysmal. And you can't blame these young men because they've been treated like the enemy. They have challenges in their life. Like, just take one issue. Young men that are trying to go to university, women are outperforming men at university in an incredible clip based on most measures that I've seen. They're graduating more, like 2 to 3, graduating more, undergrad, graduate school, all of this stuff. And yet constantly men are told they're the problem. They get all of these advantages. And so when you view that you're being attacked constantly, but you're not, because of these perceived privileges, but you're not seeing them play out, yeah, you're going to go to the people that are at least willing to talk to you. And I think whether it's cynical from Cenk or if we try to steelman his position, he's correct to point this out. Now, I think that there are a lot of Democrats that are pushing back now because they see how bad the polling is for them. They see how much young men in particular are rejecting them. So now they got to try to save face. Where were they when they mattered, though? Yeah, I agree, Jack, that the system is designed to prop up females in academia at this point.
That term you use is kind of a misnomer because it takes the bros and combines them with the oligarchs. And the oligarchs are different. Like Elon Musk might be a bro, but he's way more of an oligarch. Like the Rogans and the Portnoys are more of the classic bros, and I have a lot in common with those guys. I also have tons of disagreements with those guys. That's normal. But I'm just warning everyone, populist right, populist left, beware of the donor class. And I'm not dead set against Elon or anyone else. As you know, Piers, if he wants to cut the Pentagon, I'll help him cut the Pentagon. He control all he likes. I don't care, as long as we get to the right policy and the right things for the American people. But be careful, guys. The donor class has a lot of power, and they want things for their own benefit and not necessarily for the average guy.
I don't disagree
well,
with you.
You know, I gotta give some ground here. Where ground is due. You are correct about that. They should be disassociated between the two. Joe Rogan's not like Elon Musk. But I think when Pierce is referencing a broligarchy, it's tongue-in-cheek to say, hey, a lot of these guys are working kind of hand-in-hand in tandem in order to move a political agenda. And I don't even think any of us would disagree with that. But yes, I agree with you. There are actual oligarchs in the United States. There is a techno meritocratic class, which is coming to fruition. Nobody's disputing that. It's how we handle it that matters.
Yeah, and it was quite funny, Andrew, because my team had prepared some of your supposedly controversial, inflammatory quotes about women. And I've just read them, and I'm thinking, I think in the Brave New World, I don't find them that controversial. So
I've
I'm
never
just going to
thought
read
that
one.
I was a very controversial
One is
person.
the only reason femoids hate my wife is because I tell her to get me a beer and she does. That's the kind of thing I say to my wife and she laughs once she's made my dinner. And then you say women,
and by the way,
find beds to be.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Doesn't the beer taste better when your wife brings it to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And then you said this, and Cenk, I'm interested in whether you agree with this or not. Women find beds to be a centerpiece of decoration. Men find beds to be tools for sleeping. It serves no purpose. I mean, I agree. Cenk?
Beds. He said beds, saying. So like men, when we look at beds, we look at them as tools for sleeping in. Women actually look at them as decorations.
He's right.
As well.
Cenk?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some truth to that. Of course, not all women are the same. Not all men are the same. But my mom would...
That's such... By the way, right, I got to criticize Cenk for this. Yes, that's such a low fucking IQ take. You know? Anytime you're looking at groups of people saying, well, of course there are outliers. Yeah, okay. I mean, I can't blame Cenk too, but I do that at times too. But yeah, no one's saying that, Cenk. Of course there's outliers. But yeah.
Do curtains that didn't cover the windows at all because they looked great.
So here's my point, Cenk. Here's my point.
Exactly.
You know what's interesting? Here's my point. We've reached a point where Andrew Wilson's deeply inflammatory, controversial quotes about women can actually now be laughed at in the tone that I believe they were originally expressed, which is, you know what? Of course. It's just a bit of fun. It doesn't matter.
Now, in fairness, I love Andrew. I think he's a great guy. I'm a big fan of his. But he said things that I think are more inflammatory to women. Those are quite benign. Andrew's take on, for example, whether or not a woman can revoke consent in the moment of a sexual act if she's married. That might be a little more inflammatory in the grand scheme of things than these comments. But yeah, most of the people that criticize Andrew for his treatment of women really have no clue what he's really saying. And they have to lie. They have to spin this narrative that Andrew's wife, Rachel, must be this victim she's both enslaved but also abusing other women. It's nonsensical. Is it possible to believe that people have different interpretations on what they think marriage should be and what they think that the relationship between a husband and wife could be without assuming that they're miserable? Yeah, I completely disagree with you, Frank Black. But yeah, it's interesting that they're ending on a point. You know, the point Piers is making here is true. These would have been things that were considered controversial that mainstream people like Piers Morgan or Cenk may have been afraid to say, yeah, I agree with that 5-6 years ago. But now it's like, yeah. Oh, Big Mango, thanks for the raid. Whoever raided on Twitch there, thank you so much. Just finishing up this debate review.
Yes.
So women and men can tell little light-hearted jokes about each other, playing up all kinds of stereotypes, and it doesn't matter. People don't need to be shamed,
all the time.
cancelled,
Yes.
vilified, fired from their jobs. We can actually have fun, and then we can actually, by doing that, isolate the people who really deserve to be isolated, who are despicable pieces of work. So anyway, look, we've reached at the end a point of agreement, which is breathtaking to me. And Cenk, it goes well with your line about my theory is we might be able to get more done if we put aside the mutual hatred. I'm glad we saw a bit of the old volcanic Cenk rear its head today. It's good to see that hasn't gone away, but also good to see...
Can't wait to do it again.
But also good to see we reached a point of agreement at the end, chaps, and I would love to do it again. Actually, really interesting debate. Thank you both very much.
All right.
Appreciate it. I take none of this personally, by the way, Cenk, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Cenk, final word?
God bless Andrew.
Great to see you guys.
I appreciate you guys. Look, I always appreciate every conversation. The more of these conversations we have, as heated as they get, at the end, you find agreement.
I agree.
And that's what we have to do. We have to talk through things as a country.
Totally
so
agree.
that we can find the parts where we actually
That is why, listen, that's why we all do what we do, right? We just want to be...
Okay. Yeah, so overall final thoughts. I think that my initial point was correct. That I thought that there's two different debate styles, though they're both bombastic and will hurl insults and things like that. Andrew's debate style is more to focus on specifics in each broader category. What do you think about Trump's executive orders? Andrew, like a pit bull, takes his teeth into one specific thing that he takes umbrage with what his opponent's saying, and he hammers down on those facts. Cenk's more interested in more of a broad scope of saying, I'm not going to really get into the specifics, but he's trying to win more of sort of optically. I'm biased in that I think that I predispose to Andrew's positions and tending to agree with them. But with that bias in mind, I think Andrew did far better than Cenk in this debate. The only part that I think that Cenk has any sort of point whatsoever is that optically, many of people in this country might think, whoa, Andrew's going a little too far, claiming that this female bishop is satanic. But I don't think that Cenk makes a good argument on the specifics of that. He's just probably right optically that that's the case. And if Andrew's agenda is to just optically win the debate, like, for example, if he's doing this debate and 1,000 people are watching, and for every person that votes for him, he gets $1,000, maybe that's not the best argument to make. But if his argument is, I'm just arguing things that I think are truthful, I don't think Cenk does a particular good job of getting into the specifics about whether or not it is satanic to have a female bishop or if it is an inversion of the word of God. But I do think that he's correct on that optic point. But other than that, almost any time they get into the specifics, I think Andrew is clearly winning. There might be people that find that Andrew's too abrasive or too smug or something like that. For me, I don't think so. I think that Cenk gives as good as he gets. Same with Andrew. So I didn't think that that was particularly a persuasive argument as to one. So I think that this, in my opinion, easily goes to Andrew. I think he did a tremendous job, particularly on the topics that I happen to know a little about, such as the pardon of the January 6th, the birthright citizenship, and those sort of things that I might be more predisposed to having an interest in. So, but great opportunity. I didn't think Cenk came across as particularly, horrible. He could put thoughts together. He's better than some of the people I debate that you've seen me debate, So I would be happy to debate Cenk at some point. And do I get more viewers now that Destiny is canceled? One, Destiny's not canceled. And second, no. I get more viewers if I put a bigger streamer's name in my title, like Andrew Wilson or Destiny. But no, my views have been pretty much the same since the story about Destiny broke out. So let me read Super Chats in case I missed any. And I did not the other night, and I extremely apologize. That is not good form whatsoever. I was in a hurry the last time I streamed from home, and I ended because I heard my man crying downstairs, my 4-year-old, and I went downstairs, and then I terribly realized 15 minutes later that I never read the Super Chats, and I really feel terrible about that. So please, anyone that I forgot to read out the Super Chats last week, I am, from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. I honestly am. It wasn't intentional, and I understand that I'm lucky to have even one person that watches me or one person that wants to donate. And for y'all to throw your hard-earned money in, I didn't even give a shout-out to it. It's not cool, so I do apologize. If you're on other platforms other than YouTube, unfortunately, the way my channel's set up, I can't see the donations that you're giving. So those donations really mean a lot to me as well. But unfortunately, I can't see them, so I won't know who specifically gave money. But at least the people that I could see, I really always try to shout out. So let's go back to the beginning. Well, some of these I've read already, but let's read them again anyways. Jess Gerald for $10 says, nice trim, bro. Yeah, good haircut. Thank you. Jess Gerald then gifts 50 memberships. Absolutely incredible. Always incredibly generous, Jess Gerald. I really appreciate it. Andrew Haskin becomes a member for 3 months. Says, you are the best debater I've seen on the internet. Thank you so much. Raymond Hessel for $5 says, would you ever do a wrestling stream one night? I've started watching modern wrestling more now that it's on Netflix. I love older wrestling. Yeah, I would theoretically do a wrestling stream. Would I try to get outside of my wheelhouse? Like I did a stream where I played chess once with a streamer. No one watches, to be honest. There's 290 people watching right now on YouTube because they like me debating and talking politics. If they came on and saw me playing chess or watching wrestling, I'd probably have 40 people watching. The other day, I took callers, and I took a caller about Pittsburgh Steelers football, and you could just see the numbers falling off. Cody Folsom for $5 says, hope all is well, Rob. It is. Rachel Wilson, again, Andrew's wife, thank you for watching and thanks for the donation. For $5 says, Jake Rattlesnake showed a video of Hassan Piker and Cenk talking about Andrew on a live stream back in July, so he's lying here. She's referencing when Cenk says, I don't even know who you are, you're a pimple on my ass. Apparently he's talked about him before. Shotgun Breakfast for $10 says, I've seen Andrew dismiss people making appeals to hypocrisy against him. Isn't that exactly what he's doing with Cenk by saying he's being performative? I already answered this, but further I'd like to say, Andrew's central argument is there is a double standard in how we have done these things at every level. From media professionals, from from law enforcement. And that double standard is something that needs to be rejected in our system of law. We can't have an unequal application of law. And so it's not just that he's talking about hypocrisy of the personal actions of Cenk, which in the context of this debate matter, but it's also hypocrisy and how law enforcement played it out. Melanie for $10, oops, my screen just collapsed, says, they feign objectivity so long as it hurts Trump. They give concessions only if it doesn't bolster Trump, so they come across as objective, so their anti-Trump point seems stronger. It's absolutely true. One of the things you'll see routinely is in the moment when, like, say, like an issue like Russiagate. So in 2016, 2017, when I'm rushing, or 2017, I guess, when I'm writing about how corrupt the Russia investigation into Trump was, they're all saying, no, it's a wild conspiracy theory. Then once it no longer matters, they say, whatever, it was a long time ago. They do this on almost every single thing. Like now they'll say, oh yeah, Biden's pardons out the door were really bad. See, I'm willing to criticize Biden, see? Yeah, when it's too late. Well, I called out Biden's cognitive decline. Right, once he was ousted from running. But you didn't call it out when it mattered. They didn't care about Bill Clinton's sexual abuse scandals when he was in office, but as soon as he's no longer in office, they're like, yeah, this is bad. And they do that to try to appeal. See, I'll criticize both sides. Are they criticizing it in the moment when it could affect them politically? Like I do? Like I did in Trump's first term? I criticized Trump heavily for his bullshit meme coin. Right at the beginning of his presidency. I should do like they do. Defend him on everything, and then 4 years from now when he's out of office go, yeah, that meme coin was bullshit. Yep. See? I criticize both sides. Melanie again for $5 says, I bet Andrew believes more people agree with him than people say or realize, and so what he thinks is right. I don't think that he would believe whether or not he's saying is right is contingent on if people believe him. But I do think more people believe him than 5%, like Cenk was saying. I think that he would believe that number's higher, particularly people in his community, but I think also outside that. Mr. Bellis, the Department of Numismatics. Thank you for becoming a member, man. Otis Driftwood for $5 says, Chunk Yogurt is looking chunkier than normal. Well, as a fat man myself, I have nothing to say. Chief of Sinners for $5 says, you have good takes. Thank you. I agree. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Mr. Bellis again for $10 says, the Super Chat is sponsored by The Tactical Soap, a Grondike soap company. Wash away degen trollers in chat with Grid's Musk, our strongest soap. It even cuts through feminism funk. Try Tactical Soap today. I will try that. What a persuasive advertisement. Ivy Ellen for $5 says, I get uncomfortable whenever Andrew doesn't smoke for this long because I don't know what could happen. Yeah, Andrew on his best behavior, not scarfing down nicotine sticks while he's on Piers Morgan. Flim Talk gives $20, says nothing. Thank you so much, Flim Talk. Thank you all for your donations. Really appreciate it. Tomorrow's stream is going to be an early one. It's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be with the Cider House. That's John Ward and a bunch of people. They're great people. John is a guy who's an avid Trump supporter. He's based as shit. You guys would love him. He's like me, except more aggressive. He'll tell the lefties just like eat shit even more than me. I try to actually debate them. John will just be like, what's the point? He has been working at State College, or what you might know as Penn State University. And he's trying to build like a media network there, particularly with a lot of young Republicans and young college students. Great dudes. I've talked to them. They did my 24-hour stream. We're going to be talking about some of the Destiny drama. So that's going to be at 6 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to explain sort of what's going on with the story. And then maybe I'll stick around after and we'll do more politics stuff. One word of caution. Sometimes the language that the people I'll be streaming with tomorrow isn't the most PC. And so there is a chance that I will have to stop streaming on YouTube if they use a particular word or something like that, and then set the video to private or remove it. So if you catch a bit of tomorrow's live stream and then you go to look for the VOD later and it's not there, that's what happened. So best to catch it live at 6 o'clock because you just don't know what's going to happen with them. But that's sort of the intent. So I hope you enjoyed this content. Again, it was a 40-minute debate. It took me 3 hours to get through, though obviously there was some stuff at the end reading Super Chats and 20 minutes or so at the beginning, kind of explaining what I was going to do, but to sort of get an idea of what the idea is for shows like this. I'm sure we're going to have more bells and whistles. We're going to have maybe different intro cards and stuff for the debate review streams. But, yeah, I think that I enjoyed this. I like this sort of content, and I hope you all did as well. All right, it's 12:30. I'm going to get to bed. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm going to head out here. I hope you all have a fantastic evening. And as always, have a good one.